Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. A fine libations Friday to you and yours. Hope this finds you doing well. I'm Jeff. That is Tom. We're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. You can go there to listen live via the streaming free. Always don't miss anything. If you need to miss and catch up later, I've got good news for you. We'll post the show, all 3 hours of it. Go back and listen to it at your convenience by way of Apple Podcasts. Yay! Email us if you like, JCS at 979 ESPNradio.com. On Twitter, it's at JCameronShow. And hello, YouTubers. Hope you're well. Florida State, Notre Dame, tomorrow night. Pregame show, myself, Tom Lang, as 3 to 5. 3 to 5 on these airwaves. Tallahassee Game Day. Also, you can watch the show like you're doing now with this show, perhaps. If you're on YouTube, go to War Chant TV on YouTube. Go to that channel, and you'll find us doing the game. You can even ask questions on the YouTube feed. We'll try to get to some of those in the 2 hours that were allotted there. That is tomorrow. And, of course, the Noles, a huge underdog, 21-point underdogs, depending on where you look. And that feels about right. That seems about right. Certainly don't feel a lot of buzz surrounding this game from our fan base. Now, it is nice to come off of a win and to have found an identity and to know what you're building around. You're building around a quarterback whose skill set you understand. May not make a difference in this game because, again, I don't think the line of scrimmage is something that Florida State can control on either side. That goes a long way in deciding football games for certain. That's problematic. But nonetheless, I do think it is helpful for the play caller, primary play caller, and for game plan reasons for Mike Norvell and Coach Dillingham to be able to know, all right, this is our guy, this is what he can and cannot do, and this is what we have to scheme for him this week. You didn't really have that when you were kind of going into these games up in the air about who was going to start, and you didn't know which version of James Blackman you were going to get after the script was over. Now you kind of know what you got. I mean, I think that at the very least you would argue that you've got a gamer. I think you got a gamer. Jordan Travis is a gamer.
You've got somebody who understands the limitations of what's going on in front of him. Yeah. If there's a breakdown, he's just going to run up the field. He's not going to try and extend the play necessarily, bounce outside the pocket, and try to make a throw when the window's closed, because that's also what Tate does. And Tate's a freshman, and so we forgive him more than we forgive James for the same mistakes.
Sure.
But if you've got somebody who says, screw it, I'm going to get 2nd and 7, instead of rolling out and trying to get a first down the field, fine. Do whatever you can to keep the chains moving or stay ahead of the chains to get you in third manageable. But it's just hard for me. I think we're going to get slapped around a little bit tomorrow. I'm looking for signs that we are better in a similar situation to the one we were playing Miami a couple weeks ago. Yeah, if we look a little bit more competent in the middle part of the game, when we're off script, you might say, then okay, then that's good.
All guests appear via the Phone Hero hotline. We'll have a few of them today, as Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports will join us in the 4 o'clock hour. My mother and her wagers in the 5 o'clock hour. Phone Hero, that'd be Phone Hero, as most people say phone, not phone. Specializing in iPhone and iPad repair, although I think I may take to saying phone. Honey, can you hand me the phone? What? I want the phone.
That sounds like something that would make Kirkjian laugh, because that sounds like a Baltimore accent.
Yeah. It would. He'd be howling right now, and it'd be great. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway and 833 West Gain Street. Online at phoneherotlh.com. You can tell it's Libations Friday. All right.
Hey, we're back in the normal time slot at least.
Yeah, that feels good. Braves, congratulations to all of you who root for the Bravos. They are victorious, sweeping the Miami Marlins. Not even a close series at all. They cruise on in, and your grand reward is you get to get pasted by the Dodgers. But I'm admittedly, rooting for you, Braves fans. Screw the Dodgers. Let's go, Braves. I say that lightly.
That's your opinion?
Yeah, man.
I feel for the Dodgers more now because of the Houston thing than I have in the past. Even though they're trying to buy this thing and cheat their own way, which is the acceptable way to cheat, which is just to outspend everybody. Like that's pretty rough because it's a Razor's Edge series against the Astros.
Yeah.
And what could put you over the top in a Razor's Edge series?
Knowing what's coming.
Probably.
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom on that trash can, baby. Here comes that fastball. Turn on it. Yeah, that's a toughie. That is a toughie. But I'll root for the Braves. We carry the Braves, Tom. I don't know if you're aware of that. We're an affiliate with the Atlanta Braves. We'll have them and their games. And so we want to see the Braves continue to do well.
I am aware of it.
Good.
Let me see if I can find the Don Sutton message.
Don Sutton sent me a message personally.
Don Sutton here, and we're saving you from Jeff's Pirates love and Tom whining about his Mets. You're dialed into Tallahassee's home plate for the Braves, 97.9. That's ESPN Radio.
All right. Maybe I should call him on the phone. So it should be noted that if we're going to have any chance in the game tomorrow night, it will be sustained drives, maybe rather unorthodox sustained drives from Jordan Travis, making people miss as the line of scrimmage collapses. That's kind of what you feel here. I'm really more interested, believe it or not, in the defense. I want to see, are you game, are you competitive? Because Notre Dame can block it up just a little bit. And the last time we faced somebody that could block a little bit, we struggled mightily. This will be the best offensive line we've faced. It's not close.
Yeah, that's why I feel that the 20.5, 21, 22, I don't even upward under
24?
24, even if it's 23.5.
Will you give me the Knowles in 24.5?
No, 23.5 is the best I can do.
I'm dangling it out there, a little 24.5.
You can dangle away. I'll look over here while you dangle away.
I'm dangling a 24.5 out
and
there.
I'll say, 23.5.
Tall boys. I was willing to throw it out there.
How are we going to get off the field? That's the problem.
Agreed. I say that all the time. I every time I watch this, I'm like, how the hell is this group going to
Gonna need a high snap. Anybody got a high snap here?
Penalty here or there. Little rust that set in due to COVID. Maybe. Another day, another Buck gone for the year. It happens every freaking time we play football these days, and it adds salt to the wounds of Buck fans everywhere who watch a 1-point loss on the road last night. That I can live with. Thursday night football, sloppy always for both teams, and this was no different. A few tough calls that go against the Bucks. Hey, it happens. It's football, but you can't continue to lose guys for the damn year. Can we just not, hey, listen, I got a sprained wrist. I'll see you on Tuesday. No. It's always got to be, I'm done. Shut it down. Grand opening, grand closing. Last week, O.J. Howard, that's not an ankle sprain. That's not a slight strain. No, that's a ruptured Achilles. See you next year.
Don't worry. We can just transfer money from your account into a portfolio with your son, and it's gone.
Yeah, Vita Vea, best nose tackle in football. Most disruptive, dominant figure in football at nose tackle. Plays the run, rushes the passer, allows the rest of your defense and those linebackers to do what they do. Oh, looks like he's holding his ankle. I see where he got rolled up on. That stinks. He'll be okay.
Don't worry. We can just transfer money from your account into a portfolio with your son, and it's gone.
Yeah, broken leg, done for the year. Sweet Jesus, man. Throw in the mix that Brady didn't know it was fourth down. Played 38 years in the league, and you can't keep track of the downs. That's a toughie. That's a toughie.
Yes, considering he has an outlet to the back that gets you an easy first down, probably puts you on Chicago's 45, spiking the ball with 15, 16 seconds to go.
With a throw to the sideline, you kick a long field goal, maybe you still win. Yeah,
correct.
It's tough, man.
Man, imagine Jameis did that.
Well, we do this a lot, and I understand it. I'm not going to do it every game. I think the bulk of play, Brady played fine. He had no receivers to throw to in this game. Evans is not right. He's merely a red zone threat. Scotty Miller plays, but he might as well not have. He was nowhere to be found in this football game. And there's guys out there running routes I've never heard of. This is like last year at the end of the season with Jameis, where I'm like, who the hell's that guy?
Or you got two guys in the same spot on more than one occasion.
Well, Evans can't clear out, so he's just jogging down the field because he's hurt, and so you've got Gronk and Evans in the same exact spot on a play twice, and you're going, okay, well I'm sure that's not by design. Then again, with Bruce Arians, one never knows anymore. He's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, so I'm not going to let one weird Thursday night loss by a point say that the season's gone, but I am going to say that a couple things need to happen. A, your best players, meaning ours in Tampa Bay, need to stop getting hurt for, the year. B, I would argue that this is where Brady can do what we talked about in the Scuttlebucks, which is completely take over the team. He has the cachet and what for to do it, and it looked like last night it's about to happen. He was livid about a lot of things, and he was right to be. The Jensen stuff's got to stop. That guy does it every week. It's got to stop. You got players with asinine penalties, lining up wrong, any number of things that you could see he was about to burst. I mean, how many times did you look up and it's 1st and 30 because of dumbass penalties?
Well, and you have a drive killing or a touchdown killing sack on the field goal that we kicked, where Donovan Smith loses 1-on-1 to Mack on a simple move. I mean, it's
not
literally
even a move.
snap
He just
bang,
ran past him.
Snap bang. He's on the ground.
The look on Brady's face.
Yes.
Now, and you know what? As indignant as he can be, and high and mighty as he can be, and hoity-toity and frustrating as he can be, he was right to be pissed. I'm like, he in his mind, because you could see it wash over his face as he's staring at Mack, who just crushed him again, and he's thinking, well, that took you less than 2 seconds. Do I have a left tackle? I mean, that took you less than 2 seconds. I mean, I took 2 steps, bam.
But here's the thing. If you had said to me in, I don't know, March, that through 5 games, the Bucs offense would be hot and cold, that you'd have 2 pick sixes against, and you'd have a quarterback forget how many downs there were in a key series where you could win the game.
You'd take it.
No, I think I'd say, we re-signed Jameis. Okay. Now we signed Tom.
Yeah, I think Tom's played okay, though. I'm at a point where I'm fine with him. He didn't lose us the game last night. And, frankly, 3rd and 17, 3rd and whatever it would have been, they weren't going to convert that. But you do need to know how many downs. I agree with that. But I don't think they were going to convert anyhow. They were in a hapless situation with one of the premier rushers in the league pinning his ears in those situations. It was always going to be you had minimal time to get the ball out. You might have been able to pick up 12 and then go for 4th and 5 or something like that or whatever it was.
I think they had the 4th down conversion on the outlet. But where I agree with you is you spike it. Now, I don't know you can get it to the sidelines anywhere close to where you need to kick a field goal.
Right.
Because you don't have any timeouts.
No.
And if they do and they wall it off the way they're supposed to, you got to almost throw it down the middle and hope you can spike it with like a second or two left and kick a 52-yarder.
This also speaks to how unlucky they get sometimes. I mean, I know it's football, but you lose a timeout because of the injury to Vea.
Right.
That's ridiculous. I mean, I was laughing when it happened. I'm like, okay, that's going to cost us a timeout because that's the rule. The man breaks his leg and we get cost a time. I mean, that hurts.
I probably would have called one there anyway, but I hear what you're saying. And there are 3 critical situations in which if the call goes your way one time and it's deserved to go your way one of those 3 times. And don't get me wrong. There are a couple of calls that they let go or we got. I mean, the way they call pass interference these days.
It's a miracle it wasn't called on the interception.
Pick. Yeah, I would have thought that would have been hand fighting pass interference on defense,
which we know is not pass interference.
It's not.
But these days, man, unbelievable.
But you have an offsides versus false start. That's a key. I mean, they don't have points on the board yet last night, Chicago.
Yeah, it is a false start, and they got away with it, and that ends up being not called against them, which leads to points for them, yes.
And then you've got the sack or the catch fumble, which they overturned on the field. I think via our text messages, we disagree on what the ruling should have been.
We disagree. We'll talk about it.
I think we got screwed. And then the roughing the passer, of course, which everybody, the world agrees. Bears fans agree. That's insane, and that extends a drive when they're going to punt.
Well, right. To me, it's about the time and the yardage and all of that. I mean, it shifts the yardage game. This is why you end up getting pinned, because even though you get the stop on the next set of downs, you should have never had to have gotten that stop. You should have had the ball somewhere around the 40-yard line, where if you get one first down, now you at the very least are in a position to pin them inside their own 20. And it doesn't happen because they call erroneously a roughing the passer penalty, which, by the way, they got to stop doing. They've already set up the rules in place for quarterbacks to an extent that makes it unfair and affects the integrity of the game. Stop calling ticky-tack nonsense on quarterbacks.
What I'm more mad about, though, is the offsides false start. That's hard to miss. That's impossible to miss.
It was a guard. It wasn't a tackle. That's why.
But, I mean, he's not barely leaning. He didn't do a little twitch with his hands. No, I mean, he's falling on his butt if he doesn't save himself. And that's where we lost the game, is in that final 2-minute situation. We own the first half. We had the ball the entirety of the first half, and then you're down 1 point at the break.
You also committed a penalty in that last series of the first half, which puts you in a tough situation where now they're able to break up the little check down. That's all because we play stupid.
But you know who says sweet justice? Chargers fans. Because that's how we got back in the game last week, was inside of 2 minutes.
Yeah, but we didn't make it as asinine a decision as Anthony Lynn made. I mean, there's 38 seconds on the clock. Take a knee. What are you doing running a play?
No, we didn't do anything. We didn't make a coaching decision that was egregious. We allowed them to go down the field, though. I mean, just because they convert on that series doesn't mean that you have to allow them to go all the way down the field and score. 2-minute defense has been a little shaky this year.
It has. Well, especially at the end of halves. I mean, we did it, obviously, a couple weeks ago, and it drove me nuts then, too. And I mentioned it. It was really the only thing that allowed, was it Carolina?
Denver.
Denver didn't have any kind of
the Driscoll drive. Yeah.
It was right down the field. I mean, it was a joke. It won't be the last time we bitch about that. But it's Friday. It's Libations Friday. It's loosey-goosey.
Got to recruit.
Oh, I want to talk about that. There you go. Good job, Tom. There's the softball. That's the way you serve it up, buddy. This is Light Tower Power. I'm going deep on this one.
Like Dylan G.
It's that's a beauty.
In his daddy.
That's a good Libations Friday cut right there. A little old school cult. Saw them play this live. Lakeland in the 80s.
They seem to have a lot of different sounds.
They did. They started out sort of new wavy and got into just your classic hard rock. They graduated to that. The Rick Rubin produced record, Electric, which is one of the great rock and roll records of all time, saw a shift in sound. The record prior to that is called Love, and it's very much straight out of England, new wave sort of sounding. But
beautiful.
Yeah, just so you know.
I still dig new wave.
I do too, and especially when it's done really well like that. I mean, Billy Duffy, the guitarist, is elite, and Ian Astbury can really sing. Who I also met. Ian Astbury at a gas station by the Don Cesar.
Is that so?
That's a true story, yeah. I got his autograph.
What time of day was it?
Middle of the afternoon. They pulled in. They were staying at the Don because they were playing a show. They were opening for Billy Idol, and
of course they were.
Yeah, and they and by the way, everybody stayed at the Don Cesar if you played like the Bayfront Center in St. Pete or anything like that. And I worked at the Don Cesar, and I saw this psychedelic van pull into this gas station, and I was like, who the hell? It was crazy, big, long psychedelic. Well, it was a bus more than it was a band.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's got to be a band. I knew it. And I ran over there. And I saw Billy Duffy got out first, and he's an interesting-looking guitarist, spiky blonde hair, like all this. And I realized it was him, and Ian Astbury played the role to the hilt. I got to give him all the credit in the world. So back in those days, he wore like the Jim Morrison leather pants and boots, and he had, because he's part Native American, he had like this feather in his hair with a long jacket and the chains, and he got out. It was like slow motion. It was exactly what you would expect it to be. It's like one boot after the other with the jingles, cha-chung, cha-chung, and he's tall. And I was like, look at that. That's freaking Ian Astbury. He had a big black hat on with a feather in it. I was like, Ian, I'm going to your show. He was like, well, thanks. And I ran over with, back in those days, you'd have to get the carbon copy receipts from, and I had one in my car. I ran over, I was like, will you sign this?
Be sure to get there at 4. Talk is a great band.
Talk is a great band. Was a great band. Unfortunately, the lead singer of Talk just died this past year. So it is, we move to this, and this would be a What Them Kids Doin'. Go!
Hello once again, friends. It's time for What Them Kids Doing.
Look at that jibber jabber Jeff. What's that kid bench? How fast does he run?
Hey, who let you in here?
Look at him. I bet he can bench a lot. What them kids doing, Jeff?
They're committing to Florida State. What? This is one big dude right here. 4-star defensive lineman Chambray Jackson commits to FSU over Alabama. That's called a leap of faith.
All right, that's a big man.
Woo! That is a big man. How about that? What are we doing here, Chambray? Well, he's more of a defensive end, first of all. And secondly, he's about 240, 245 pounds at 6'4". But the fact that you're going head-to-head with Alabama and you somehow, some way, get a kid to say yes to you and not Alabama, that suggests, Tom, we're doing the right things in recruiting.
Maybe some phone calls are being made.
The right thing has to be done if you're going to flip a roster.
Yeah, fluffy Bisquick pancakes.
Now, he said he grew up a Florida State fan, so maybe not as many pancakes were necessary.
Yeah, fluffy Bisquick pancakes.
He went on to say it was stressful to go through everything because I had all the offers.
Yeah, fluffy Bisquick pancakes.
I like you, Chambray. That's right, you had all the offers. I grew up a Florida State fan, but I really liked Alabama, so it wasn't all that easy. It came down to me having the best relationship with the coaches at Florida State. I talked to the entire coaching staff. I'm close to Odell Haggins, Coach Adam Fuller, and Coach Mike Norvell. Alabama's great. I like them a lot too, but Florida State is it for me. That's right, my man.
Yeah, fluffy Bisquick pancakes.
Come on, man. This is where you got to have a kid who has opportunities to go, obviously, to the place, the best place to play football in the country, arguably, Alabama or Clemson right now. And he says, no, I'm going to be a Knoll. And I think when you look at the frame, you realize he can get a lot bigger. And that'll help.
Well, that's where he trends to be an edge-setting defensive end or an interior guy. So if you're looking for your bona fide pass rusher here, this is not that player, but it's somebody that is the caliber that Alabama's wanting. So you need more of those.
Yes.
Because guess what? The interior of the line needs work. So wherever we can plug this guy, it needs work.
If you're getting 4-star defensive linemen, ends, tackles of any kind that are in competition or you're in competition with Alabama, then yeah, that's all right. I'll take that. Chalk that up as a big-time win for the Noles. We're not getting many of them in recruiting these days.
It's another big win for the Seminoles.
Big win for the Noles. That's what them kids doing. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9, ESPN Radio. biggest chance for the largest upset of the weekend? Would you say, because I think you would, I'm going to, that it's the Vikings upsetting the Seahawks?
NFL. Okay, so you had my mind on Saturdays. Let me take a look at the Sundays.
I think it's the Vikings upsetting the Seahawks. It's the porous defense of the Seattle Seahawks having to try to neutralize Dalvin Cook. I could see. Now, I'm not picking them to upset Seattle, but I would tell you that I think that has a real possibility of happening.
Yeah, if I was looking real quick at, is the number on that 7? Yeah, it's 7. Okay, so let me try and make an argument for a 7.5 game. I think Washington could beat the Rams because the Rams will just have a random stinker
They do it all. Well, they
now.
played like ass against the Giants
Correct.
this past game. Yeah.
And they might do it again. They're on the East Coast again. And the Rams Washington's starting a quarterback that they want to for the system that they run offensively in Kyle Allen, who can be good every once in a while.
Especially if he's facing the Bucs.
They're a 7.5 point underdog at home for a reason. But if you're looking for somebody as a candidate, yeah, I mean, I could see the Rams just be completely discombobulated. Cam Akers is supposed to be back in that running back rotation this weekend for LA, but it's confused. Nobody gets in a rhythm on that team. One week it's Brown, another week it's Akers.
The argument you want to make, too, is that go look at the splits for Goff, home and away. He's terrible on the road. Always. Has been since he came into the league. For whatever reason, he doesn't play well on the road. He plays extremely well at home. But it shouldn't matter because there's barely any fans in the stands these days, but whatever it is.
And the one thing that New York could do last week, unfortunately, Red Zone pivoted to that game far too often because it was close. But Freeman had a good day out of the backfield catching the football. He had time and space. And Gibson is faster than Devonta Freeman. So if there is the same amount of space for these checkdowns for Allen to hit, Antonio Gibson might rack up quite a few points here.
I just think you're right. So for a game to be a big upset, you got to pick it at 7, 7.5, somewhere in there or more. I'm not going to take the Giants to beat the Cowboys. I'm not going to. I think the Vikings could legitimately upset Seattle. You're going for something bold here.
Sure. Yeah.
The Bengals are not going to beat the Ravens, although there's a rumor that Lamar Jackson is banged up. So that would change the way you'd look at that game. I still don't pick the Bengals, but you're not going to take the Eagles to beat the Steelers. You're not going to take the Jets to do anything against anybody. They play Arizona, by the way, who, it should be noted, has gotten terrible quarterback play the last 2 weeks. Just saying. They're in a rush to tell everybody Kyler Murray's great. He's played awful. Then you've got the Rams game you mentioned. Well, the Raiders aren't going to beat the Chiefs, so we don't need to stay away from that one. So I kind of like my pick. I got to tell you, I like Minnesota to be in that game against Seattle. They should be. Seattle's defense is dreadful. That's one of the reasons that Russ has had to play so well.
Yeah, once they brought Jefferson out. Now, I mean, that offense is legit. And I think,
it's legitimately great because of Russ.
But I'm looking at I'm talking about Minnesota's.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
They got Justin Jefferson out there to go with Thielen, and you've got Dalvin. I mean, that's a dynamic offense, and I wish the Bucs had played them in September and not in December when they might have a better idea of how the rookie operates. But Cousins has a lot of options if they give him time. But if I'm Seattle, I just bring the house and, against the run, against the pass, doesn't matter.
They've been awful against the run. It'll be interesting. That Seattle team, we consider an elite team because of what Russ does. And, they win games, close games, because he always gives you a spectacular performance. And so if you get a spectacular performance from the best player on the field every week, you're going to be in almost every game. But why you have to play so many close games is because your defense is a sieve. Dallas's defense is worse, obviously, but it's hard to find another defense as bad as Seattle's in this league outside of Dallas. It's crazy. And by the way, Dallas's defense is historically bad. They're breaking records that have been in play for as long as the league has been around. It is I can't fathom being a part of that defense and having to look at the offensive players' faces.
Yeah, well, Lovie Smith set a lot of marks for Tampa Bay when he was 10 years too late to come back to the Bucs, and the Falcons did what they wanted to every time. So did the Saints. The Ravens played us, and they scored 35 in the first quarter. I mean, yeah.
It should be noted it's impossible to score 35 points and a half in the NFL, but the Ravens did it to the Bucs.
I think it was 28 in the quarter.
It was crazy.
But if you're going to break those records, then you've done something. You really earned it.
Upset. Come on, Vikings.
But to be looking at that Washington football team, because you know what happens, buddy? If they pull Kyle Allen, Alex Smith returns to the football field, which I know, insert the jokes here about the back and forth we have, but that would be a really cool story.
It would be a great story. You would root for it, and I would really hope that he'd play great. I'd love to see it. I don't have any love lost for the Rams. I don't care anything about him. So, sure, if he got in there, it would be great to see. Do you think it is odd, though, that you pull your starting quarterback and make him the third-string quarterback? There is something else going on in Washington. They hate him.
For the system that they want to run, absolutely. Got to be.
But I also think, and I went to read the papers, the Washington Post, and there's a hint that, like, the players don't like him, and in addition, he may not. Doug Williams took a shot saying, he needs to learn the playbook better.
Oh, wow.
Now, you think about the implications of what I'm talking about. Doug Williams, first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl, the subject of a lot of discrimination from his own owner when he was in Tampa, Hugh Culverhouse, knows the historical impact of racism in that league on black quarterbacks specifically. Taking a shot on a black quarterback that works in your organization and saying he doesn't know the playbook, that does not bode well. That tells me that kid isn't studying at all. Doesn't it? Doesn't that? I mean, That's a massive thing to say publicly.
Well, and here's the deal, too, is you've got a coach who used Kyle Allen in relief the last few years, and he brought him in immediately as an insurance policy. Perhaps he was told upon taking the job, you might want to get your insurance policy ready to go.
Like Dwayne isn't doing.
Yeah.
I mean, that just tells me you're not doing you don't invest a first-round pick, your first pick, in a quarterback and make him a third-string quarterback because he has some tough games this quickly.
But what's curious about that, he didn't have a bad game against Baltimore. You're making this move not after he just flopped. It wasn't a 4-pick performance. He threw for 3 bills. He really didn't turn the ball over against a good Baltimore defense. And they still said, now's the time. We're done here.
Well, I'm telling you, from what I'm reading in the tea leaves here, they hate him. They don't like him. Personally, like they don't like him, and apparently he's not studying the playbook. The only other time I can think of something like this, I believe this happened as well with who was the Chargers quarterback with the drugs, Ryan Leaf.
Leaf, yeah.
All right, so they suspected he was messed up, and they were trying to test him to see if he was doing the requisite work at leading it up, and they gave him something erroneous in the playbook to learn that it would have stood out, and he didn't pick up on it, which means they knew he didn't open it up. And they did it to Byron Russell, too. You ever hear the story? This is a crazy story. They gave him game film. They suspected he was not watching the game film.
So they put adult films on the...
That's correct.
I was just being absurd.
No, they did that. They edited in a scene from an adult film in the middle of the review tape that he was supposed to be looking at. They asked him about when he came to the offices the next day, did you review the film? Yes. What'd you think? He never made mention of the fact that, I was watching it, and all of a sudden there was an adult scene. They knew he'd never looked at it. Never even cracked the tape.
I thought I was cracking a joke.
It actually, that's a real story.
It's a good tactic.
It is a great tactic. It's the Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. By the way, Jacksonville State's favored by 7.5 over Mercer.
Hey, there they are.
They're alive and well. 7.5-point underdogs to Jacksonville State.
We could have called them after all if we needed them.
Would have been a good game for a half if they're comparable. We might find ourselves squirrely again, getting a little nervous.
I'm going to check in on that score to see if there's a COVID cancellation for some other campus and we need to fill in a gap. Maybe Mercer would be the kind of candidate that we'd want to get Chubba Purdy out there to give him a good look, right?
I agree. And you said something to me during the break that got me to check it, so I'll do it again. By the way, Lee Sterling, Paramount Sports, going to join us atop the next hour. We'll go over the games that he's got for this week. Of course, he's going to touch on Florida and Texas A&M. He's going to touch on Georgia, Tennessee, Clemson, Miami, our game. I think, one of the games that I'm really interested in watching play out because I have some real question marks surrounding who wins the game. I like the Virginia Tech North Carolina game a lot. That's going to be a fun game. That said, you got me looking because we were reminded, and we had to retire it, but maybe we bring it out because 2020 is absurd and it's difficult, and every day it's a kick to the boys, and it's just we need a little fun in our life. Tom is lobbying, folks, and if it happens, it'll happen next week. But a little taste, you can give a little taste to bring this back.
Hell no, to the no, no, no. Hell to the no, hell to the no, to the no, no, no.
Oh, I missed it. I had forgotten about how much I liked it.
So I think on the Jay Cameron show this afternoon, maybe you put a poll that goes for the whole weekend and that says hell to the yeah or hell to the no. Did we bring it back?
Okay.
I'll bet you it's 80-20 yes. People need it. People love it. People want it.
If we were to have done it this week, you got to mine the slate for small school ass whoopings.
Who's Kansas got?
I don't think Kansas plays this week. Lucky for them. I have steady made money off of Kansas. It's anybody against Kansas, and you are safe. It's an ATM. Now, soon that number's going to get too big. Vegas is going to be like, okay, I can't do it anymore. We're going to favor Iowa State next week against Kansas by 60 because Kansas is terrible. And they were always terrible, but they've taken a step back from the terrible that they were. They're even worse.
The hat did a little bit for a short time.
For about an hour.
Yeah.
And now it's gone completely south. So what I would tell you is that if you were looking for it, and you're right to bring this up because here's what I would tell you. You need a full slate of games. We don't have enough games right now to get those really crazy point spreads that you're held to the knock.
Everybody's playing in conference. It's tough.
Like right now, you would get BYU, UTSA. That is 34.5. I think I would take UTSA plus 34.5.
Hell no, to the no, no, no. Hell
that would be the one. That would be the 34. You don't have another lopsided spread. You got a 29.5. Army's favored by 29.5 over Citadel.
That's option versus option, isn't it?
Yeah. Ooh. It's like looking in a mirror, Tom.
Yeah, but Army really, they've improved year over year mightily, haven't they?
They have. Our game, we're 20.5. You only have to lay 20.5 right now at some spots if you want Notre Dame, not the 21.5. Mm-hmm. That's a magic number.
Yeah, eyes emoji, buddy. Eyes emoji.
You're like, woo, okay, I like it. But because we don't have this full slate, tonight's game is interesting, I guess, Louisville and Georgia Tech. I'd like to tell you that Louisville's going to cover that number except for the fact that they don't play defense at Louisville, so that's going to be like 38-35 with a quarter to play.
I've never done this, nor will I ever, because it's your thing to do, but I would just submit for approval. 2 fingers to my eyes, 2 fingers back to Malik Cunningham. Yeah. Got to be, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Everybody talks this guy up. He's not Bo Nix bad, but,
Sorry ass. I'm going to ask Lee about Bo Nix when he comes in here in a minute. It bothers me.
When that segment ended last week, I don't know what Lee thinks about Bo Nix. I knew that was coming because he brings it up, and I see the look in your eye. I told Matthew, here comes the Bo Nix thing again.
Well, was I right?
No, I think you are. But anytime you hear the name, you go,
listen.
Why are you bringing up Bo Nix?
Here's what I'm going to tell you. It's not a matter of you think I am. I was right. I took Georgia, gave the points, and said Bo Nix won't score more than 7 points. They didn't. It was an easy win. That's a rocking chair game because that kid's not any good.
Right. Now, he's going to take home the Brett Hundley Award.
I don't even think he's as good as Brett Hundley.
He's the 2020 Brett Hundley Award winner.
Well, that's all on what's-his-face. What's that dude's name who does the mocks?
McShay.
Yeah. McShay, drunk ass. And I like Todd McShay, and he was on crack when he was talking about Brett Hundley. That was how did he just never see him play? No, he did. He did see him play. He was on the sideline for a game. He was a field reporter. I was like, are you watching this guy play? He can't play. Listen, I'll admit, sometimes you get fooled by kids. Could be system. Could be he doesn't have enough around him. We're both going to have to admit that we were probably way off on Justin Herbert. I think that dude is the real deal. I just saw him in person, and, man, he prolongs plays. He's big and strong. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's not afraid to let it loose. He tries to make plays down the field, a la Jameis. Like, a lot of guys come into the league, and they're check-down Joes, man. Joe Burrow right now checks everything down. Now, he's accurate, and their offensive line's garbage, so some of that is he has to do that, and he's played well. I like Joe Burrow. But, man, most of the time, you don't get rookie players at that position stretching the field, challenging every quadrant.
Oh, yeah.
He does.
I scooped the Herbert for my backup.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's just a future buy. That's what that is.
I like him, man.
They named him the starter this week.
Oh, well, what are we doing?
Well, but they had been saying that, I think it was to take the pressure off the kid, that it's Tyrod's job. It's Tyrod's job. All right, you know what, fellas? One person, Cam Newton, has thrown for more yards in his first 3 games than Justin Herbert. Herbert's thrown for 900 plus. Only the second quarterback ever to do that. Cam threw for 1,000 in his first 3 games. That's it. That's the list. So I think we're going to start this guy moving forward.
It'd be a good idea. I would also say that we really can't, as football fans, and I'm guilty of it too, and I think we're all probably going to have to really look at this. And I'm not saying you were doing this. It's a record, so fine. But we've got to get away from yardage records anymore. It's nothing for bad quarterbacks to throw for 300 yards. It happens every week.
I understand that, but we were flag waving the Jameis stuff for a long time about yardage.
But what I'm saying, yes, and I'm saying some of those yards were empty. But when you break Dan Marino's record, it's worth mentioning. I mean, I'm just saying yes and no. It's now abundantly clear with the way they officiate games. You get more at-bats because third down drives are sustained by nothing penalties, and they're not calling holding, and guys have all day. It's just...
I agree, but we've seen the throws. The games are all
the
close
throws
that he's
are
playing.
what I'm talking about. The throws are what I appreciate.
These games are all close. He's not down 20 in the second half of any of these games, and it's only 3 picks against those 900 yards.
No,
if you could give me 1 pick per 300 yards, I'm going to take it.
Listen, I'm telling you, he could have thrown for 240 yards as opposed to the 300 and whatever he throws for per game. And I would have said he's impressive. Just the throws, they're all there. He's got every throw in the bag. And he's bigger. I knew he was big. I knew he was an athlete. They had done that profile of him on game day, so you knew he was a good athlete. But when you saw that shot on the sideline against a linebacker, and then he puts the linebacker down and just kind of looks at him and jogs back to the huddle, I went, whoa, we've got a tree trunk over here. We got a guy.
And he really didn't steal up for it. He just kind of absorbed the hit.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, you ought not be able to do that. That's a strong dude. Lee Sterling, Paramount Sports. Up next, Jeff Kimmer Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. number 2, Libations Friday, loosey-goosey edition of the program. You know what that means? As we're wont to do on Fridays, we'll be heading over to Lee Sterling Paramount Sports in just a moment. By the way, a reminder, we're online if you want to stream the show, ESPNTallahassee.com. You can watch it on YouTube. Hello, YouTubers. You can always go back and get caught up because we serve it up as a podcast on Apple Podcasts as soon as the show concludes every day. So a lot of ways to get with the program and get caught up on segments you miss. You can also email the show if you like, jcs@979espnradio.com. You can find me on Twitter @JCameronShow. And away we go. I should mention, again, all guests appear via the Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero, specializing in iPhone and iPad repair. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway and 833 West Gain Street. Online at phoneherotlh.com. Let's bring him in, Lee Sterling, Paramount Sports. Hello, Lee. How the hell are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. A little nervous about the Miami game.
Well, let me ask you real quick then. I don't mean this insultingly. I don't think you should be nervous. Like, you don't expect to win that game.
No.
Right, you know that when you have something to lose, when you think there's a chance that you're going to win, that's when you get nervous. I wouldn't think. I mean, as improved as Miami is, we don't think they're going to win this game.
No, but I think it's so important for Miami to, I think it would be a win if they were going into the fourth quarter down by 10 points or less.
Yeah, they make it a game and they show that they deserve to be on the same field. The problem the ACC's had is very few people have shown, outside of the fluky moments like North Carolina a year ago, where Clemson kind of sleepwalks every now and again if they don't take you serious. Very few teams have shown that they even deserve to be out there athlete for athlete with Clemson right now. And if you're a team that's aspiring to topple them at some point when we get back to normalcy with divisions and coming out of the coast or whatever, you got to show that you're getting there. And you're right. I think that's where it's at, right? Miami has to show this weekend, not that they can beat Clemson, which would be great, but rather that they deserve to be on the field with them, that they're close.
Well, it's going to carry over to recruiting. And somehow Miami, this is one of the greatest mysteries, or give the Miami coaching staff credit. They went from going 6-7 to pulling in a really good recruiting class. And if they can go, let's say 9-2 this year, they are going to. Right now, it's like number 9, the recruiting class. It could be a top 5 class, which is amazing. So I think it's that important just to keep it going. Mm-hmm. Like you said, be competitive. Make it look like you belong on the same field. And it's tough. I mean, when Miami gets a 5-star, they're throwing a party. Clemson, they get a 5-star. It's like going to 7-Eleven and picking up the 6-pack.
You know what's funny though, and Lee, you've covered this game for a long time, and you and I both know how rich we've had it in the state of Florida between the 3 big schools. Very few places in the country can say what we can say.
No, but that's when we're in down periods like Florida State is now. You're like, you want it even more.
Well, yeah,
it's not just winning it. You want to be in the hunt. You want to be in the top 10.
Well, we all can remember, Lee, to your point, what it was like to be ho-hum about grabbing yet another 5-star. Like, when Miami was at the height of their powers, you would look at that roster and you'd go, well, on defense, 8 of the 11 first 3 rounds of the draft. On offense, 9 of the 11 first 3 rounds of the draft. The other guys will get picked up somewhere late in the draft. I mean, it's like even the 2013 Knowles, all 22 got drafted. They all went on to the NFL. I mean, that's people say, how were they so good? Well, they had an NFL player at every position.
Yep.
But that seems like eons ago now for Knowles fans, and Miami's still not close to where they were, and yet Clemson has supplanted all of it. It is infinitely aggravating.
Right.
It's tough. It just shows you it can happen to anybody, though.
It never seems like all 3 are real good together. So that's I guess the wish.
Yeah, we did have it in the 90s a little bit there.
Yeah.
We did when Spurrier got there.
Maybe a little overlap, a year or two, maybe.
Yeah. All right, let's go with, speaking of one of the Florida teams, this is an interesting game. Florida's given 6.5 to Texas A&M, and to me, this feels like Texas A&M's last stand. I don't know if it's going to matter, and Jimbo sure looks beleaguered, and that team doesn't show up in games that matter, not yet anyhow. Do they show up here and make this a game because Florida's defense is susceptible to it, or do they just continue the trend of not getting any better under Jimbo Fisher?
I think that there's something wrong there. I mean,
yeah.
You watch Kellen Mond. You just watch his body language. I don't just look at a kid dropping back and throwing. You got to look at the whole picture. And he looks like he lacks confidence. This is a 4-year starter. I mean, this isn't a guy in his second year.
He's regressed, Lee.
Their
He's
star receiver
regressed.
coming back obviously has something to do with it. They just don't have the playmakers. And, I mean, he's a manager. He's a game manager right now, Kellen Mond, whereas Kyle Trask, look what Dan Mullen's done for this guy. I mean, he might be this year's version of Joe Burrow, completing almost 72% of his passes. So Jimbo's stock going down 4-8 the last 12 against the spread since mid-2019. Dan Mullen, the Gators, since he arrived, 6-2 against the spread, is an SEC visitor. I'm going to keep riding with Florida, 35-24.
Georgia's defense is arguably, I think, quite possibly the best in the country. Is it enough to cover the 12.5 against a Tennessee program that has shown some resurgence?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you two ways to bet this game. If I had to make a decision before the game, I think Georgia's the right side. Why do I say that? If you go based on what we saw, they're probably going to be able to stop the Tennessee running game, which they're run heavy. I mean, they're 51 runs, only 23 passes last week against Missouri. That's where they do their best work. I think they're much improved. I think they're just below the top 3 or 4 teams, getting better and better. Their offensive and defensive lines are much improved also, cutting down on their mistakes. They're just confident, and they're not blowing leads. And I like the play calling offense. I think even the defense is looking better. But here's the problem. If Georgia's run defense can hold them on first and second down, and they're forced to get in some third and long situations, I think it's trouble here for Tennessee. So what I'm going to do is I'm not betting the game beforehand, but we can't give in-game wagering. I'm going to watch this game, and if I see that Tennessee can run the football or can't, my wager will be if they can run the football, I might play Tennessee in-game. If they can't, Georgia's the right side here. Because Stetson Bennett, he is who he is. He's 5'11", 190, just gets the ball to playmakers. Before the game, Georgia to 30-13, but like I said, this might be an in-game perfect wager here.
You and I think a lot alike. I've got Georgia covering here because of the defense, and if Tennessee has to throw the ball in third and obvious, they're dead. They're dead.
But maybe
if they can run,
they brought their A game last week.
Yeah, if they can run, you're right.
They don't bring their A game, and Tennessee starts running the first couple series. I might play him plus the points and even sprinkle in a money line.
Hey, Lee, I got to ask you this. People have heard me here say it a lot, and they think I'm too harsh sometimes. You were referencing Georgia's win last week. Bo Nix sucks, man.
Yeah,
I don't know. Why do we continue to talk about this kid? Why do they talk about him at all? He's not any good at all.
He is average.
Thank you.
Great name. He's got a good name.
He's terrible. I watch him all the time. I'm like, why do we continue to talk about this kid like he's going to do something? He's not any good.
Johnson Nix, you don't watch him, but he's Bo Nix, and his father was the quarterback at Auburn. Right?
I think that's exactly what it has to be. Right. Clemson's given 14.5, depending on when you got it against the Canes. Do your Canes rise up and make it interesting?
So, I don't get Miami going from unranked to ranked 7th in the country. Do I think they're much improved with De'Ara King at quarterback? Absolutely. But they've gone from 367 yards a game and boring on offense to exciting and 499 yards per game after 3 games. But they still got some questions on the offensive line. I don't know if any of their offensive line starters would start for an Ohio State, a Clemson, or an Alabama. And their defensive tackles probably wouldn't make the 2 deep at Clemson. Some inexperience at linebacker, and their cornerbacks and strikers are just average. I just think that someone might have poked the bear here, and I think Clemson's going to be ready for this game. They got something to prove, 45-21.
Notre Dame is giving a heap and helping to Florida State. I don't think if Notre Dame, I don't know how many players are going to be there for them. Let's hope most of them are unavailable due to COVID. I don't wish COVID on anybody, but, if they got to miss some games.
What are you hearing? How many players?
I don't, listen, they had, last week there were like 18 players they were down. Right. And so, it's all secretive right now. I don't know what we'll find out at game time. I think we know that, obviously. For Florida State, they have to hope that where the deficiencies lie in terms of kids missing are on the offensive defensive lines, because Notre Dame, if they've got their full allotment of guys, Florida State can't block them, and also I'm not real sure on the other side that they will get pushed around as well. So I minus 21 seems about right to me. I might be willing to give that. What do you say?
Yeah, if they're not missing too many guys, the Notre Dame offense really hasn't hit on full cylinders here yet, and they still scored 79 points in 2 games. Their receivers not getting a lot of separation here, but they may not need to. You know, they beat Florida State by 29 points 2 years ago, and they rushed in that game 50 times for 365 yards. And Florida State is probably worse now. So favored also 14-3 in the last 17 Seminole games until Florida State pulled the upset last week against Jacksonville State. Had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
But as long as there's not too many guys out, I like Notre Dame 41-14.
I was at that Notre Dame game 2 years ago.
I told you not to go.
No, I had a blast. I knew we were going to lose. I didn't go to see us win. I went for the experience.
Right.
And I stayed in Chicago, so I had a great time.
I did the same thing. I think it was like 91 or 92. The Leonard Connolly fumble. Yeah.
I forgot about that. My goodness, we're going back a ways.
Yeah, long time.
Indianapolis and Cleveland may be one of the most interesting NFL games of the week. I love this game. Colts given 2.
So I'm picking a game here I think it's going to be the game of the week. And Indianapolis' defense ranked number 1. And I think they're a top 5 defense. But the last 3 weeks they faced Minnesota, which hadn't come around yet, their offense, which now is a different offense. The Jets and Chicago, they were playing with a lead those 3 games. First game of the year against Jacksonville, when they were playing from behind, they couldn't get the job done. So I just think that Cleveland's that team. As long as Baker Mayfield doesn't throw 2 or 3 interceptions in this game, I think they can make Phillip Rivers play from behind, and that's where he has problems. So I'm hoping and praying that Cleveland doesn't turn the ball over 3 or 4 times, and their defense doesn't get a bunch of personal fouls and jumping off sides penalties, so encroachment. So I like Cleveland here. I'm going to take a shot here on Cleveland. Wrong team's favorite, 27-20.
Game of the week is a good one. I love this game because I think Virginia Tech could win it. North Carolina, Virginia Tech, how can folks get it?
Just call 800-400-9741. We'll give them North Carolina and Virginia Tech. Both these 2 teams undefeated, looking to get in the ACC championship game. A lot on the line. I think I've got the intel on this game. Just call 800-400-9741. And how about this, Jeff? We won 4 to 5 weeks here at Paramount Sports, and Locktober continues. 4 weeks, just $197. So they want to hop on board. Now's the time. ParamountSports.com. Use that coupon code SAVE300. ParamountSports.com. $197 for every game on my executive service through Monday, November 2nd. So ride with me, bet with me, win with me through Monday, November 2nd. Then you root for your candidate on the 3rd. We come back on the 4th. You sign up again, and we go through the Super Bowl. Sound like a plan?
You got a plan in place. I love it. Be well, brother. Enjoy the game.
You too, Jeff.
All right, man. Take care. That's Lee Sterling, Paramount Sports. He was on our Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero specializing in iPhone and iPad repair. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway, 833 West Gain Street as well. Online at phoneherotlh.com. Yeah, I think if you're a Miami fan, you just got to hope that game is, 28-14, 28-17 going to the fourth quarter. You'd feel pretty good about that. Maybe a little higher scoring. It is interesting when it's weird to go through a season and to navigate a season like we're doing here at Florida State when the expectations are so nominal, and then to watch your rivals. Florida's playing Texas A&M in a high-profile game, and they've got a chance to really crush what remains of A&M season if they go up there and win big and throw the ball around the lot. And you see what their aspirations are. They're thinking, frankly, that they can certainly win the East and play for the SEC title against Alabama. And, who knows what happens there. If you win that game, obviously you're going to go to the college football playoff. That's where their thoughts are, whether you agree with it or not. That's, as a fan base, where they're at. And Miami may not be Clemson. They certainly aren't Clemson, and I don't suspect deep down think they're going to win this game. But they probably believe they're certainly the second-best team in the ACC and that there may not be another loss on that schedule. I would disagree with that, but that's where they're at. And there's us. There we are. Just hoping against hope that there's I don't know, some semblance of life in the fourth quarter against Notre Dame, and we're not down 40. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Sterling, Paramount Sports. If you missed those picks, Florida minus 6.5 against Texas A&M. Said he's going to look and monitor the Georgia-Tennessee game in-game, but his pick before kickoff would be that Georgia's defense dominates the day. That's the right pick, Lee. Georgia minus 12.5 against Tennessee. Tennessee is better, but they run the ball. They do not throw the ball on third down exceptionally well. He's an average quarterback. He's a little bit like what we have at quarterback right now at Florida State, which is if he can run to set up the pass, he might be throwing to wide open guys. If he has to throw in third and obvious, we're going to have some problems. So
yeah, the hope is that Notre Dame is just sloppy because it's been a disjointed mess the last couple of weeks, so we can take advantage of that to make something happen, at least a little bit of noise.
Yeah, and maybe the entirety of their defensive line is out with COVID. Something could happen like that. Could be. We just don't know. We won't know till game time. Clemson minus 14 against Miami. He took Clemson to make a statement there. Notre Dame he took to cover the 3-touchdown spread against Florida State, but did note that we need to monitor the starting lineups. I said, yeah, man, if you're actually going to be a sporting guy for that game, you need to monitor who's playing in the game because I don't know what Notre Dame has or doesn't have going into this game. And then in the NFL, which is really quite the game of the weekend, Indianapolis and Cleveland is a great game. Indianapolis is favored by 2 on the road against Cleveland. That should be a fun game. I would take Indy, but he's got Cleveland.
Yeah, that game from a uniform standpoint could be taking place in 1962.
Which is my cup of tea. I'm one of the few guys, I like the old school Browns uniforms, and I've always loved the Colts uniforms. They're just beautiful in their simplification, man. It's just so, less is more, man. Less is more with uniforms. That's just a regal white and blue with the horseshoe I always thought was really cool. They're high on my list of uniforms. I wish they were still in Baltimore. I wish they were the Baltimore Colts and all that good stuff, but that's what you got. So I like that game. I don't love the NFL slate. It's not a good one. It's tough to get real excited about what we have on deck in the NFL, but, it's football. And the way they're having to cancel games, now we don't know what's going to happen with the Jets game. You have all these problems coming out with COVID. You're beginning to wonder, will they start to think about bubbles?
I think they might because, listen, yesterday you saw a report from news sites like ESPN that won't run a story unless the NFL says it's okay. I truly believe it's to that level, that they're in bed together to such a degree that when it comes to something like canceling or pausing the season, right, or canceling games, they wouldn't run that without at least checking in with NFL PR. Too much money at stake. And the story read that the NFL's lead medical officer says that you might want to pause it. And you might pause it for the purposes of regional bubbles. I don't think that's a terrible idea.
No, because you want to play your season. You desperately want to play your season. And now the Jets have been sent home after a positive COVID test. Every day I get up, there's another story about the Titans or somebody testing positive again. And, you had the situation with New England. You got a lot of frustration mounting now for perhaps what is broken protocol. They've got to get it under wraps here. You can't afford to have, say 3 or 4 games canceled in the weekend. It gets more and more. It gets exceedingly difficult, as we pointed out yesterday, that once the bye weeks have occurred, you can't move things around.
Right. Yeah, the fundamental difference between Major League Baseball and the NFL is they could stack double headers at 7 innings apiece later down the schedule and make up the games. Is it bastardized even more than the 60-game schedule? Absolutely. But you can do it. You can pull it off. You can't be having a round-robin game like at 1 o'clock and then 7 o'clock at the NFL level and say, all right, let's play 3 quarters of Indy and Jacksonville, and then the Jets will play the Colts again at 7 o'clock. We'll go 3 quarters there. It just doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't. And I hope that they don't have to do this because I like the games being played in the actual stadiums for which the team is the host. But if they can't, they can't. You got to figure it out. Got to find a way to play the games. That's what matters more than anything else. Did you note, and I know we have to take a break early this hour, or this segment, but just something to kind of, it's a non sequitur. Popular on the Jeff Cameron Show. Did you see Bryson DeChambeau yesterday?
364 to 14 feet.
Yeah, and he shot a 62, and he's hitting the ball in places nobody's ever hit the ball, and I'm really beginning to get frustrated because he's not going away.
He's been validated in his own mind and in reality, so it's easier for him to just let loose. What is there to lose? There's nothing for him to lose anymore. It's a dangerous thing.
Well, it's dangerous for a lot of reasons because now we're going to have to hear the asinine comments, which used to lurk in the dark because nobody cared what Bryson DeChambeau had to say. Now that he's winning and winning big, like you say, that affirmation is there, and he thinks you need to know that he's smarter than you.
But if you treat him as Shooter McGavin, it becomes funny and you kind of embrace it.
Then
If
you
look
grow
at
to
him
like him?
a little bit in a weird way.
Then you're like, you know what? You're so ridiculous. I like you.
Yeah.
Now, not as a human being, but as a character.
Right, like Patrick Reed is sinister. I wouldn't qualify this guy as sinister. I'd qualify him as full of it.
Oh, he's full of it. Yes. And he's unique and good for the game. I've said that time and again. He's really good for professional golf.
Like Brooks is gruff, Reed is sinister, and this guy is just completely full of crap.
Reed is borderline sociopathic in my mind. I worry about him. That guy will stone cold lie and pass on the lie detector test and stare at you as he does it, knowing what he's saying.
Everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah,
here.
it's like you're like, what in the this is happening?
No, I was in Budapest. Checks out.
Yeah,
of course it did.
Yes, it did. Of course it does. Yeah, it's nuts. Jeff Cameron Show 97.9 ESPN Radio. We always like to circle back when it's necessary to do so. Past topics on the Jeff Cameron Show dictate that. Here you go, Tom. You recall this conversation, I think. Lion Gardner Tyler Jr. dies 175 years after his grandfather, John Tyler, served as president. Think about that again. So we talked about this miracle genealogy. It's just insane that this existed. But here you go again for those not familiar with the story. Obviously, for most of us, you go back a couple generations, you're talking about World War II, right? For Lion Gardner Tyler Jr., who died September 26, 2 generations stretched to a century or earlier when steam locomotives ruled the land and his grandfather was the 10th president of the United States. That's insane. Tyler, 95, was the grandson of John Tyler, who served as president from 1841 to 1845. Let that marinate for a second. Tyler was the grandson of John Tyler, who served as president from 1841 to 1845. He died from complications of Alzheimer's disease. A younger brother still survives. That someone in the 21st century could have a grandfather who knew Thomas Jefferson is insane. But it exists. It's a statistical anomaly. It is attributed to late in life paternity, obviously, as you well know. Second wives and all of that longevity. 3 generations of Tyler men have spanned 230 plus years. Tyler was a World War II veteran himself, a lawyer and a history professor at VMI. He was proud of his ancestors, spoke about him. It was not what defined his life. His daughter, Susan Selena Pope Tyler, said Thursday that her father was a humble and compassionate man and mentored others, kind and loving, etc. Tyler lived in Franklin, Tennessee at the time of his passing. He grew up in Virginia. His younger brother, Harrison Ruffin Tyler, 91, is now the last surviving grandson of the former president. So there is a surviving grandson of John Tyler, who was the Whig Party president. The Whig Party president of 1840. He was elected vice president, but he was thrust into the role of commander-in-chief when William Henry Harrison died 1 month into office as president. By the way, he got no respect. He was like Rodney Dangerfield, because this was one of the first times that this had happened to where a guy had only been in office for a month and then you got to be president because he died. His detractors never forgave him for what they didn't feel like was earned, and they called him his accidency.
Did they really? That is fantastic. Well, if you look at whatever we can find close to a transcript, right, a record of how people talk to one another in the chamber and within the political sphere, it was unbelievable.
Well, they still do it over in England.
Yeah.
When you listen to them talk to each other, you're like, oh, my Lord.
We do it in a much more uncouth way here in this country these days.
That is correct.
But it holds no candle to the things that people would say at the U.S. House of Congress.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to kill you. Things like absurd things like that.
President Tyler, who served 1 term, fathered 15 children. His wife, my God, what a soldier she was, Letitia, had 8 children before she died in 1842. His second wife, Julia, had 7. John Tyler was 63 when his son, Lion Gardner Tyler, was born. Lion Sr., who went on to become president of William and Mary, by the way, Tom, was 71 when Lion Jr. was born. 71, knocking out kids. The younger Lion was a lawyer before turning to an academic career. John Tyler lived to be, 90, in his late 90s?
Yeah. I would assume so.
Lion Tyler Jr. himself had a bit of humor about being related to a U.S. president. Quote, I heard too much about presidents growing up, he wrote in one speech he delivered. He related that when he was 3 or 4 years old, a woman asked, are you going to be president when you grow up? He answered, I'll bite your head off. Then asked, and what will you do with the bones? He told her, I'll spit them out. So Dad used to, they say, be a little cranky about the questions regarding presidency.
So he could have told you about this. His grandpappy could have told you about this. This is May 22nd, 1856 in the Senate, not the U.S. House of Representatives. But Representative Preston Brooks walked into the Senate. He was pro-slavery. He hit Senator Charles Sumner, whacked him in the head with a cane, and proceeded to beat him unconscious. And Brooks walked out of the chamber without anybody stopping him. 1856.
Oh, yeah, they got it.
That's how they threw it down back then.
They threw it down back then. I think it's really my favorite part of that whole article, by the way, and just putting a ribbon on this, is that you could be the grandson of somebody who knew well Thomas Jefferson. Like that conversation when you're a tiny kid, you're talking to your granddad, hey, what was Thomas Jefferson like? That is freaking fabulous.
Now, he took over in 1841?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay, so there was a murder in 1838 when Congress was divided between the Whigs and the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the most famous incidents of violence amongst people who were elected officials. But yeah, they beat you with a cane, they'll kill you. And this grandson, the surviving grandson, can tell you about how it happened from granddaddy's mouth.
Yeah, he could sit at the same dinner table and ask him, I know things got dicey, Granddad, when you were president. Share some stories of the violence. Also, what was Thomas Jefferson like? That's really freaking cool. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Side note here, I would suggest if you get an opportunity, I don't know how many of you have, to watch BYU quarterback Zach Johnson. He's good. He's good, man. 45-14. They're 3-0. You go back to, that was their last score, but they're 3-0, and he's good. He's fun to watch, and I'm looking at some of these numbers, and I realize now that when you talk, like there's 3 or 4 people that have mentioned him now in the last 2 days alone as, I know BYU doesn't get paid attention to, but if you want to see good quarterback play when you're thinking about projecting to the draft, take a look at that guy.
You're talking to one of them. When you were bringing up Alabama's quarterback play over the weekend, we were doing the recap.
That kid's good, man.
I couldn't help but be, because I may have had an interest in that game on Friday night last week, that BYU's quarterback, the correct shoulder, he sees the field and scans the field like a pro, and you made the joke that he might be 35, and I don't know how old he is. He might have just come off a 10-year mission.
Right.
But my God, he sees the field like an adult, and he's got the arm strength to do something about it.
He's, I was watching some highlights after I read yet another article about him, and I know you had mentioned him, and I thought, okay, well, let's take a look at this. And I started looking at those throws, and I went, oh, we got something here. Did you watch 49-31 last night, Houston-Tulane?
I did not, no.
Seems like it would have been a fun game to watch because at one point I looked up and it was like 31-28 or something like that and well into the second half.
Tulane was off to such a hot start that I kind of gave up on it. I didn't realize that the game would have been even close to compelling. Yeah. And then the Bucks game was what it was. So.
Yeah, Houston won 49-31.
Wow.
So that flipped on its head. And we certainly have lots of opportunities, and I'll bring it up again here to start the 5 o'clock hour in a moment. But as we conclude this hour, the Bucs situation is beginning to grow dire because of the injuries, and now I hate these Thursday night games. They frustrate me to no end. Last night felt so much like a typical Thursday night football game. It played out exactly the way that you and I said that it would. It would be ugly. You just got to find a way to win a game. Bruce Arians continues to prove that he doesn't know what he's doing anymore. That team is poorly coached. And here's the thing, man. I really like what Jensen brings to the team in terms of toughness and being a bully, and he's a quality player who had a really bad night last night. He got his ass kicked. That matchup did not favor him. He was terrible, and at the end of the game and at the end of the half, he cost us dearly, not once but twice. Brady's about to kill that guy. You cannot continue to have these kinds of penalties when you have all of these people out and even the guys that you have playing are hurt. I mean, Evans is running as fast as you. I mean, when you watch him run, he's a shell of himself right now, and he's still able to make a few plays because he's savvy and they're on the same page.
He gave you one good comeback route last night where we had to have it. It was
right.
the first down of that final drive.
Yeah, no, I think he's doing what he can. I'm not going to get on him right now. I mean, I'd like for him to get healthy at some point because, God, dog, man. But when you're without Godwin, now you've lost O.J. Howard for the year. Miller obviously was hurt last night. He was really no threat over the top in any way. The Bears knew we couldn't go down the damn field, and so you were going to be in a slog. There was no chance to really make plays there. Brady ends up having a brain cramp at the end of the game. All of the penalties, the injuries continue to mount. Now Vita Vea is gone for the year. I mean, the Bucs have significantly changed who they are with these injuries in the last 5 days.
Yeah, I know. I immediately thought, because of that tackle, that play when Villa goes down, you hear somebody cry out.
Oh, it's him.
And of course it was, and I thought, oh, well, that's the end of the year for him. Then the replay shows it's more of an ankle as the principal point of where it gets rolled up, and you're thinking, oh, maybe it's just a high ankle sprain, 4 weeks. Then it's the year.
It's the broken leg.
Of course it was.
It's not even an ankle. It's a broken leg.
Yeah.
It's like when Howard came off the field when I was at the game last week. Like, oh, he's hobbled there. They have to retape that. Oh, he ruptured his Achilles. Gone for the year. Can we not have somebody just sprain an ankle every now and again?
No, but nobody does. Nobody has that. All of these soft tissue injuries across the league are all serious because we're finding out how specialized these guys are and how, in reality, this is a year-round training regimen. You hear the old-timers talk about it, especially in baseball. They're like, these guys come into spring
training. I used to paint
in
houses, and then I came here to get in shape.
I would drink beer, whatever. And it took a month to get in shape. No, these guys really do spend a year having their bodies peak in the right physical condition because the lack of it is leading to tons of injuries, big times. And I know that Villa gets rolled up on, so that's not necessarily about training.
That's just a freak thing. It's
but
unlucky.
You're talking about hammies to Godwin and Mike Evans. You're talking about the Achilles to O.J. Howard. You're talking about Scotty Miller having his own problem with the core.
Well, he's got a hip, core, groin.
Exactly. And you look across the league, every team's been hit by this.
But you can make an argument. The Bucs just lost 2 elite Pro Bowl players. I mean, O.J. Howard was on a path to the Pro Bowl.
Correct.
Vita Vea is probably the best nose tackle in football.
The Jensen thing, I understand where you're coming from. I don't think he did anything to warrant a penalty last night, but it's a reputation call.
Well,
because refs know.
Right. Okay, so listen. Yes, that's ticky-tacky. That headbutt that they call, that's just ridiculous. You can't. Okay, I'm going to do the launch into the NFL gripe that we have to go through every year. They really have got to stop with the levels to which they go to protect quarterbacks is unfair, and then the levels that they go to now to call interference is crazy. So every game, they're doing everything in their power to allow drives to be sustained on third down. That is the number one thing I see. They don't call holding because they want a lot of points. So they've done a good thing by getting rid of all the holds they were calling because they knew there was serious backlash to that. But what they do now, and it is nearly impossible to get off the field on third down. They're going to find something. That personal foul with the hit to the quarterback at the end, that is a joke. And it's the little things that people won't see in the box score. They're going to say, well, you got off the field anyhow on the next series of downs. Yes, but it changed field position. It's why we got pinned.
Right, you go 3 and out from your own 40-yard line, you're going to win the football game.
That drives me, and that is a subtle aspect of what is not talked about at all today. Yeah, Brady forgot it was 4th down, which is stupid. Yeah, they committed a series of penalties in crucial moments that really probably cost them the game. But you did everything right on that series to pin the Bears and make them punt from their own end and get great field position and then run the football and run the clock down and then pin them again, and you're probably going to win. Instead, they give a gift first down on a personal foul call that's nothing close to a personal foul, and they've got to stop with the softness with these personal foul calls on quarterbacks. It's ridiculous.
I think if you're going to win a Super Bowl, though, you're going to win it in spite of the head coach, and that's been my suspicion beforehand, and I believe it now more than ever. Honestly,
well, it was nice of him to admit. It was nice of him to finally admit that they're poorly coached. He said it finally. Well, I mean, it's tough to argue.
Well, he doesn't do anything. No. He doesn't do anything.
I don't think he does.
He's like Bowden at the end. You know, like he oversees stuff, but he's not hands-on anymore. So what do you expect?
Well,
Tom Moore to pick up for you?
But listen, here's what I would tell you. If you're going to be a CEO coach and you're going to turn it over, listen, you've got a great defensive coordinator. So that's fine. Let him just do his thing and get the hell out of his way.
I got to tighten up in the secondary, though. They're getting exposed a little bit.
A little bit. But again, some of this, I think, well, a couple of things. The rules are in favor of offenses. Dominant defense is never going to look the same as long as they're going to call things like that.
Correct, but he got spooked last night. You could see the way he called the game. He did get scared a little bit.
Well, Foles got hot.
Well, yes, and then also we're projecting things a little too easy. So the play of the game for that final field goal is when Foles motions out, was it Montgomery?
Yeah, you're talking about the throw on the back foot?
Yeah, he had him on Winfield, but he had him at wide out. He flexes in. You could see that it's man-to-man on the safety.
Yeah.
Well, the safety's 30 yards away from him.
Yeah.
And we confused him in a way because we released Barrett out in coverage. But Barrett's not going to catch him. That's the Charles Kelly
throw.
101.
And it's a perfect throw. It's a great back shoulder.
A D-end and trail against an NFL running back, you almost laugh at that. But he didn't expect to see it, so he waited kind of a hitch later. But we needed to close down the gap between the secondary and the flares coming out of the backfield. It's too easy of a read for Nick Foles.
Well, and we haven't yet this year been able to keep anybody contained in the flats. All the leak outs that we allow.
That's what I'm saying.
Time and again. I'm not even talking about wheels. I'm talking about just straight out flares.
I'm talking. Yes, flares. It's too easy. The safety valve is too easy. It's too wide open.
Long.
The best play we made against that particular route and that concept was the first one of the second half.
Yeah, that's the tackle on the sideline.
Because you have a linebacker matched up on him, not a defensive back. But we're always committing our linebackers to a blitz. That's the other side of the coin of bringing so many pressures.
Well, now you can't. And listen,
you can't next week. Hell no.
Road chase.
It's 12.
What are we going to do?
It's the other 12.
This is problematic. Yeah, they've got some issues here. I do think there's real good that came out of last night's game. Brady will no longer tolerate any nonsense. You can see he was done. He was done. Now, he can't say much because he screwed up late, but he's done. He's done with Jensen. He's done with Gronk last night. That stupid-ass penalty.
Yeah.
They're
the block in the back.
What are you doing? By the way, they called a hold on Wirfs. That's not a hold.
That's correct.
That's not a hold.
They called one on the interior, Jensen, I think, or it might have been one of the guards, where he just hits the guy in the forearm. The guy drops like a ton of bricks, and they think he chucked him to the ground, but he just hits him in the forearm.
Well, listen, we knew Khalil Mack was probably one of the best 3 or 4 defensive players in all the league.
Yeah.
And he is a menace. You're not going to face anybody better than him. And by the way, it's kind of because there are 2 big splash plays from Mack, it's going to look bad. But the truth is, Wirfs played well against him last night, especially in an impossible situation.
Wirfs did okay. He had some problems in the run game, but here's the I totally give him a free pass because you're playing twice in 4 days at the NFL level.
Well, and you're going
traveling
against Bosa and Mack.
Right, like, Jesus, that's so difficult.
I would grade him out. I bet he graded plus. He actually played well. I watched that carefully. Even the sack, Brady didn't help him. He got deep in his drop that he didn't need to.
Brady is very deep in his drops.
Well, he was way too deep in his drop there. That I can only
susceptible to a speed rush straight line. Yep.
I can only fan that guy out so far. Wirfs fanned him out, but you're 20 yards back. What do you want me to do? He's just going alongside me. I can't keep up with him forever.
No, but the crappy thing last night, so it's 2 things. Number one, long term, we have to win in spite of Bruce. Short term, last night, we got screwed. I mean, plain and simple, we did get screwed. You got 3 calls to change the course of the game, and none of them go our way. If one of them does, we win. The first one is the false start offsides before the 2-minute warning in the first half.
Yeah, that hurts.
That's 3rd and 16.
Yeah.
They're punting. It's 14-0. We have a chance to make it, or 13-0. We got a chance to make it 20-0 at the half.
Yeah, they missed the call and they go down and score. What drives me nuts
Huge.
too, the other thing is, and this is the final thing, and we'll go to the final hour. Brady's got to stop hanging people out to dry. He got that guy killed again last night, and that is a terrible throw. That was the right call. It is a catch and a fumble. It is their ball.
I don't agree with that.
I think it is for sure, and I think it's a perfectly legit hit. There's nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with the hit.
Nothing wrong with the hit.
I agree, but if you look at the first step, he hasn't secured the ball until he gets the second step in. I mean, you're talking about hands on the football with control.
I just am going to fight my proclivity to side for my team here because I'm telling you, if we did that in reverse, I'd want that call. That is a catch and a fumble. Like, the way I view it, the way we used to play football, I'd say that's a catch and a fumble. And if it happened in reverse, I'd want that call.
I don't think it is, and for another reason. They called it incomplete in the field.
That's the only argument. I would concede that argument, that if you're going to call that incomplete on the field, then you have to stick by that. That should have been called, in my opinion, that should have been called a catch on the field, and that is a hit and a fumble.
But it's not a defenseless receiver. He hip checks the guy in the ribs.
Yeah.
It's pretty well done.
Oh, it's a great hit. It's actually the kind of hit that I dream of laying on people. That is a perfect hit. There's no helmet to helmet. He doesn't even lead with the helmet. He crushes his ribs. But the point of all it is that should have never happened. That's on Brady. And he does it every week. He did it last week, and he did it the week before.
No, and I almost think he's punishing him because if you look at the sideline, he goes to the sideline.
He's not even upset.
Well, he talks about catch the effing ball because he hit him on a flare earlier. When he's staring it down, he's waiting for the opening because the scout did say that you could take advantage of the linebackers with quick little releases.
He has a right to be mad about guys dropping passes.
I think he's mad enough that he might have hung him out to dry. Well, I think he's that kind of petty.
Well, but that kind of petty cost you 7 points and maybe the game because you got that guy killed and that's a fumble and then they score. Final hour, forthcoming. part of the Jeff Cameron Show, at least for this week. Happy Libations Friday, everybody. If you're hopping in the car, let the weekend begin. Appreciate you listening to the show. I'm Jeff, that's Tom. We're online. ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you're going to listen live via the streaming free always. You miss anything, go back, get caught up. All 3 hours get posted every day upon the conclusion of the show right there to Apple Podcasts. Email us if you like, jcs@ESPNradio.com. On Twitter, it's @JCameron Show. Hello, YouTubers. I hope you're well. All right, I don't know. I cannot get a great handle on whether I think we're going to get blown the hell out by Notre Dame or that this is going to be somewhat close, surprisingly so, because they've gained a little confidence. They've got a plan in place for a quarterback that they knew was going to start all week long. They'll cater to those strengths, thus having more success early in the game and hanging on into the second quarter with a belief that they can play. Does that embolden the defense, who's probably really the worst part of this matchup, going against that offensive line for Notre Dame, which, by the way, all credit in the world goes to Notre Dame. Every freaking year they produce, it's them and Iowa and Alabama, produce an offensive lineman every freaking year.
You'd think they parlay that into something more.
You would, but for Notre Dame, they do win 10, 11 games a year these days. That's about the best you can hope for there. You're not going to win national championship.
Especially when you're recruiting to that dump of a town.
That's true. It's tough to overcome that. But that said, they do produce elite NFL offensive linemen all the time.
All the time.
All the time. It's like, God, dog it, guys. Can we get a little bit of something like that? Anything close to it? All the time. And their line this year is really good. And that's not good because our defensive line, which was supposed to be the strength of the team, pretty much sorry. So that tells me we're going to get blown out. But something about a little bit of rust and weird circumstances surrounding Notre Dame coming into this game with all of the COVID stuff and the time off, something about having an identity, something about being game on the offensive line against a matchup that doesn't favor you, but they are tough. They will play hard. They do try. They do fight to execute. They're all locked in. Tells me that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this stays somewhat interesting into the second half.
I think they might start okay. They did against Miami, actually.
Yeah, look right down the field.
Miami's first couple of drives. And I'm talking about...
they couldn't get off the field on third down.
I'm talking about, defensively. You put them in a couple of third and long situations. They convert. They get a couple of fourth down conversions to prolong the drive. But you're putting yourself in position to get off the field. The problem is we don't have finishers. We cannot close and get off the field. Rust might account for that, though, for Notre Dame. They might help you for a play.
Let's hope.
And put them in a 3rd and 10 instead of a 3rd and 4 because Ian Book misses an easy throw. But the problem is I don't see how we ourselves force our way off the field.
No, by making plays, no.
Yeah.
Well, and God forbid if it's 3rd and 3, 4th and 1, we're not getting that stop because our linemen, our defensive linemen, our edge rushers, our defensive front as a whole just has decided to get bitched. Every time we're in a short yardage situation, it's just straight up, you're not man enough. And it's embarrassing because there are tight ends and H-backs and people pushing defensive linemen out of the way. It can't happen. It happens all the time. It goes back to the first game of the year. I'm watching Georgia Tech. You've got that H-back running out there blocking, I think it was Kando before he got hurt.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, you can't get shoved off the ball. You're 270 pounds.
Right, exactly. And I don't know if that is a strength and conditioning coach problem or if it's an Odell problem, but it's a problem. Somebody's got to pay for that if this thing doesn't get better. And I know that you've got a saint. He's been already.
Well, no,
he's been canonized, and he is a saint, is Odell Haggins, because he's done a million things for this program. But when you're assessing moving forward about what needs to get better, that D-line has to get better real fast. It's pad level. It's basics.
Yeah, and it's also I got to say, it's interesting. This conversation, the uncomfortable conversation that we're about to enter into is something that is happening amongst Florida State faithful everywhere. Now, it's happening between one or two guys. It's happening between a son and a father. It's happening between Tom and myself. It's happening between whomever it is that you like to discuss Florida State football with. But over a beer, it's not the first time I've heard somebody say, none of us want to say, and that's how every one of the conversations begins, by the way, that you know where everybody's going the second the conversation begins with, and they start getting uncomfortable and they begin to squirm, and I want to jump in and go, say it. Odell's group is not playing well. It's okay to say. They're not. Now, that doesn't mean Odell isn't a saint. It doesn't mean we don't love Odell. It doesn't mean that he hasn't done a great job. He's done all of those things. All of those are true. But I live here now, and I'm watching this group right here and now, and they're not doing a damn thing. And that is his segment group. So
Right. You can make an argument to me that maybe if these guys' heads aren't in it, you got to get them off the field and get some players on the field who might not be as good.
They're not.
But at least they're going to play hard for you, right? Like you could make that argument and maybe it's true. But whatever it is, the group is failing against expectations in a way that no other group is, not even the receivers after the performance last week. It is the defensive line, number one. There is no tie. And I'm not afraid to say it. I did 2 weeks ago before the Miami game on the pregame show. This is a big day for Odell because that performance against Georgia Tech was crap. And then the one against Miami, short yardage, getting blown off the ball. How is it that this same group, many of the players are the same, were so much better last year when some guys might have been even out of position a little bit in terms of resetting the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, no,
and they're that awful this year.
And we never, God forbid, I mean, I'd like to neutralize the line of scrimmage. God forbid we just do that. We certainly don't reset it into the backfield. You don't get a push. You don't see guys get pushed off the ball. You need a running back who has to stop-start so that you can allow your linebackers to clean things up. They never have to stop-start. They never have to bounce. They never have to do those things. They just go straight downhill. They're going to get those 2 yards. They're going to get those 3 yards, and they know it.
The crappy thing, though, is I think this whole thing is fixed if COVID isn't where it was.
Right, they would have stayed in strength and conditioning. They would have been here.
Yeah,
yes.
Marvin would have been in much better. I mean, he was. It's markedly different. The player we sat down with for lunch, you've mentioned this a bunch, but the guy we sat down with, it was us and Marvin and Coach Marv and a couple others sitting at that table.
It was a great conversation.
We couldn't believe how Marvin Wilson looked. He looked in the pinnacle of condition, and we thought he was strong looking last year at ACC Media Kickoff. He looked even better. This guy, it's not the same.
Well, I mean, this is not an opinion. This is objectively true. You watch the games and you see that he doesn't make a ton of plays and he opts out all the time. And what I mean by opt out is he asks out of the game early. I mean, you got to...
Right, he flashes. Like, if it was a freshman, you'd say, ooh, okay that guy's got something for you.
If you're my quote-unquote first-round draft pick...
Right. Who graded out as a 90-plus of the Pro Football Focus. You don't have to take all that to the bank and literally, but if you're consistently grading out of 12 games, I think that chances are they're getting it right and saying that you're a game wrecker. But we don't even have a game, as you said, neutralizer.
No, just neutralize the line of scrimmage. Make it so it's at least even. You give your linebackers a chance to make a play, I guess, and they're not great either, so they really kind of need you to do better than that. But I'll take just neutralize the line. It hadn't happened. It's very frustrating. And Notre Dame's offensive line is great, and so that is the real concern here. It's hard to imagine there's a way you can keep Notre Dame from sustaining 10, 11, 12, 14-play drives in the same way that Miami did.
This is why I'm leaning towards blowout, because I don't know how we get off the field, and I don't know how we sustain drives, because the success we had last week against Jacksonville State, a far cry from Notre Dame, was sustained drives, not splash plays where guys are just overmatched because we out-athlete them. I mean, these are 12-play drives, 15-play drives. Yeah. I know there was one in the middle there that looked like it should from FBS against FCS, but most of those drives were 6 yards at a time, 8 yards at a time. Do you think you're going to string that together against Notre Dame consistently?
Well, the other thing here, and this is the important part to remember, just so that you guys, and we'll talk about this tomorrow on the pregame show. You can listen to it right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. We come on the air at 3 o'clock for Tallahassee Game Day. You can watch it on War Chant TV on YouTube. The thing I would point out about Jordan Travis is we were right to be excited about the way he played. He played hard. He's a fun player to watch. He is elusive. He does have some giddy up to him. He can make you miss. He's all those things. And he finally threw the ball in a way that made you realize he's better than, say, a kid in middle school trying to throw a football. We were really quite concerned that he didn't have that level of competence throwing the ball.
Right.
So
because of injury.
Right. Yes, because of injury. So the point would be, we now know that, okay, if it's open, he can get it there. He had to throw the ball twice on 3rd and long last week. Twice. That's it. That's because we constantly won first down with his legs.
One of them was a luxury, too.
Yes.
He's rolling left and he could get it with his legs, but he decides, you know what, let me air it out here. Now, that's good. That's, you'll take it, but yes.
But my point would be, if you are behind the chains in this game, and there's a very distinct likelihood you will be because of Notre Dame's defensive line going against our offensive line, which is better but not great, well, now it's 2nd and obvious, it's 3rd and obvious. You're going to ask him to make way too many throws where they know it's coming, and this...
Yeah, but here's the thing. This is how 2020 is. Everything you expect is the opposite. It's bizarro world. If you took a confidence poll and an approval poll of the defensive line and the offensive line for Florida State, The results you'd get would be that the offensive line gets more approval rating and a higher confidence level because against expectations, they are overperforming.
Oh, sure. When you've been the dregs, when you've been a bottom of the barrel, then yeah, it's if you're something that's not resembling that, it's like a huge upgrade.
Right, but this is one of the principal reasons I'm interested in watching the game tomorrow is I want to see, can the pass pro hold up again better than I expect? Because if it does, like, I'm interested to see that. Before, I would dread it. For years, I'd say, well, okay, when is the sack fumble coming in this game? When is the blindside rush coming where a guy just undresses somebody who shouldn't even be suiting up for Florida State? Now I'm looking at the line and I'm saying, okay, listen, there are going to be some bad plays, but it's not 7 in a row. It's like 2 out of 7. That's great. I can't wait to watch the offensive line grow. Weird, very weird time.
What I would ask you about Florida State's offensive line tomorrow is Babion Johnson going to play center? Because I hope not. If that's the case, we've got real issues here, and he's not any good.
I thought he did okay this weekend.
Jacksonville State
I understand.
Will allow you to look like that.
Right, but I mean, there are some fundamental things that he was incapable of doing in prior games, like snapping the ball on time. And he was, I figured the over-under was 2.5 snap infractions when I saw he was starting. And the only snap infraction of the game was Maurice Smith. So that's a baby step in the right direction. The question is, what do you have at left tackle tomorrow? Because if the answer is Devontae Love-Taylor, that means that, Washington is not available in this game, and that weakens everything. Because if you could put Love-Taylor at right guard,
which
Scott
you
to his right, and Washington out left.
Boy, I hate it for Robert Scott.
You're patching it together.
That is really tough to ask a freshman, a true freshman, Robert Scott, to go out against Notre Dame's defensive line. And then you're just thrust into these incredibly difficult situations where your choices are so limited, and I hate it for him because that's not a fair ask.
I agree, but I'm buying hope on the offensive line, whereas the defensive line, I'm selling all day on expectations. And it's just, that's so unique.
Dante Lucas, does he return? Hamza Nasruddin, does he return? Travis Jay, does he return? Robert Cooper, do we get everybody that you're looking for to return? I don't care if Warren Thompson plays or not, but
I'd be surprised if Jay returns, wouldn't you?
Well,
I mean, you got crutches and then a boot. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we put everybody in a boot, but it's a great opportunity for Travis Jay.
Oh, I hope he takes that opportunity to heart.
That's how I'd sell it. It's a great opportunity.
First of all, can I say this? I hope we made the walkthrough today. I'll bet we did.
My guess is we made the walkthrough. Now, Nasruddin was reportedly medically cleared, and he has not played. I suspect that if he does not play against Notre Dame in primetime, he's not playing. That would be heartbreaking because I think he immediately makes your defense a lot better.
Yeah.
He allows other people to move into spots where they're more comfortable, probably. He attacks, plays downhill, and is incredibly physical for a defense that lacks physicality. So that just changes the dynamic completely. And I think he energizes too, and I think he leads. I think that's a completely different story. So I just watch for that early on.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now there's going to be a rust factor there, but a rusty coming off of injury, Hamza Nasruddin is better than the alternative.
Yes.
And that's kind of sad.
Well, right, and it certainly speaks to the lack of personnel. I mean, that's the other argument and discussion and talking point in general when we talk about Florida State and how we got to this place as a program, and what are the expectations for the remainder of the season, especially in a mismatch like this, is that there is only so much you can do because you're actually lacking good players. So that's a tough one to accept. You're talking about getting guys in the right spots. Presumably, you're talking about guys that you think can play at an elite level, that can compete with the better teams on your schedule. But there are only like a handful of those guys. Everybody else is just like,
Yeah, the other frustrating thing, I think it's already done. Like the decision has been made, and it's just tough to watch as it happens, is you've got two ways of going about running this defense philosophically. If your D-line is going to be terrible, especially against expectations, you can either sit back and force Ian Book and the Notre Dame offense to string a 12-play drive together to score, or you can try and force the issue, create pressures. Mm-hmm. And Fuller has thrown the gauntlet down at this point to say, I'm going to force you to go 12 plays. I'm not going to give up the big plays over the top. Hopefully something happens where we can get you behind the chains, but I'm not going to bring 5 and 6 guys routinely in order to force the issue. That's frustrating. That's tough to watch. It's slow torture.
It is. It's as Corey Clark wrote on War Chant this week, death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's really, really difficult to watch. I do want to give kudos while we're singing praises and lamenting poor play and talking about what we need to see more of. Man, I'm telling you, I didn't think I'd say this, and it's been a really good thing. Can we give love to Fabian Lovett, who is probably, at this point, playing the best on that defensive line? He gives max effort every play, and he's actually got talent.
Now, and here is where you would argue for Odell in that
That's
grand
right.
bar
That's right.
stool argument about, and I don't mean the useless publication, I mean the actual physical bar stools. You'd say, well, I mean, did Lovett magically get better when he got here, or did he buy into what Odell had to say and everybody else has tuned him out? And that's a fair retort, I would think, because Lovett's come in and made an immediate impact, and Cooper looked really good. I think he was developed before he had to put the club on his hand.
Yeah, Cooper's played well. Fabian Lovett's played well. Kando, when he plays, is really good at setting the edge. He can't get to the passer, never has, but he's good at setting the edge.
But if you want to make the argument that Marvin's out of shape and Durden is still working his way back into shape, and neither of them are really all that committed,
Durden's playing better though. He looks like a guy that's projecting the right way.
He is. I still have to shake off his Bud Thacker moment from the Miami game, in which he's talking crap before 4th and 1, and he gets blown 5 yards back towards the linebackers.
It happens all the time. Oh,
sure, just keep yapping. I
by
mean,
the way,
Jesus.
was that a tight end that blocked him?
Could have been.
If I remember correctly, I think there's a moment.
Might have been a slot receiver for all I know.
Well, we've seen it. Georgia Tech did this. Miami did it. Jacksonville State at moments did it.
But you're going to yap like that. I mean, that just takes me back to my days. I mean, I can commiserate with these youth right now, and I can tell them about Bud Thacker getting his hands up for 3rd and 3 and saying, "Come on, crowd." And the War Chant's going,
first down.
First down, run right up the middle for 10 yards.
Yeah, you're like,
and then
don't do it again, Bud. Don't you do it. Don't.
Stand down, band. This is not the time. The War Chant used to be used for big moments.
Yeah.
Not when we give up a 3rd and 3 run right up the gut.
You know what's sad? And I'll leave it at this. Josh Griffiths is one of our better players off the edge. I'm sorry, Josh.
It's max effort.
I'm like, man.
He will pursue a play up the field, though, won't he? Bless his heart.
He's a freshman. He shouldn't be out there, first of all, and he shouldn't be anywhere near one of your better players because, you can't really play. Just like, damn it, man.
Don't you worry, buddy. Amari Gaynor has the slot locked down. He's got the hook zone. He's got it.
Oh, man. It's the Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Well, that's AC/DC, and you know that. My mom is a huge AC/DC fan, which makes me smile. And last night, I got one or two texts from my mom during the Bucs game, but the first one I got was the celebration of finding out that AC/DC's got a new album coming out. That was the first thing she texted me, and was like, "Oh, AC/DC's got a new record coming out." So, that's pretty cool to have. I won't say your age, Mom, and in a second we'll cue it up and we'll do our picks, but to have my mom at her age being pumped about the release of the new AC/DC record, enough to text, is a good thing. Cue it up. Go ahead. Fire away. Here we go.
And now for another edition of the Family Pick. Nick.
Go to your room!
Ma, the meatloaf!
Take it away, Jeffrey.
Mom, you caught up a game last week. You took 2 of 3, so what was a 5-game lead 2 weeks ago is down to 3. You're chipping away.
I know it. I'm getting back in the game. I'm telling you what, but I don't know. Yes, to talk to your point, I was so excited. They mentioned that last night on the football game, and I was like, holy smokes, and they say it's coming out on November the 13th, which is right before my birthday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look at that. That's an
so
easy present.
I was so excited. I was like, I got to tell Jeffrey that, because he's always wanting to know something for my birthday. I thought, oh, there you go. There it is.
I think I'll do better than a CD, Mom, but I'll
Well, whatever. But anyway, hopefully that'll be included.
Yeah, I can throw that in the card.
Yeah, throw that in.
Yeah.
I know. Throw that in the card. Yeah, absolutely. So, but that game, I needed something to perk me up, because that game last night sure didn't.
No, and they continue to lose players, and now, you lose a vital cog on this defense. Probably, you could make the argument anyhow, at nose tackle, he's the best in the league in Vita Vea, and now he's out for the year with a broken leg, and Nunez Roches is not the caliber of player that Vita Vea is, and so now all of a sudden, the number of snaps he has to play, and then his backup has to play in rotation, so you're getting down to third and fourth string guys. There aren't a lot of answers. It's not like you can just plug and play somebody of Vita Vea's caliber, because he has the ability to stop the run, of course, but he also has strength and speed to rush the passer. You saw it in the game last night. He got a sack.
I know. I'm just heartbroken, because I didn't know. I was hoping maybe it was just a serious ankle sprain or something. I didn't. Nobody has said that I've heard today, about the leg, but I haven't listened to too much of SportsCenter today. But anyway, I am just bummed about it, because he's such a good player, and I really like him.
Well, every week the Bucs lose a potential Pro Bowler. I mean, O.J. Howard last week, and he was off to the best start of his career with Tom Brady throwing him the ball. They had developed a connection, and now you find yourself in a situation where, granted, you still have Gronkowski and you have Cameron Brate, both good players at this stage of his career. Gronk is just a good player, not a great player, and Brate's just a good player. He's never been a great player, but you don't have the difference maker to stretch the field down the seams like you had. And now you lose, obviously, one of your best defensive players. You've been banged up all year long at wide receiver. Godwin doesn't play last night. Evans is clearly not at full speed. So, it just feels like it's the walking wounded right now, and you can't afford to make the kinds of mistakes the Bucs did at the end of the game and at the end of the half and expect to win when you're that hobbled. And so that's why you saw Brady's frustration. And then Brady can't really just continue to point fingers, because, here he is having a brain cramp at the most critical time of the game, not knowing what down it is. So it's a tough loss.
I know. That was very frustrating to me, too, because I just was thinking, how in the world does somebody that's won 6 Super Bowls not know what friggin' down it is?
Yeah, it left me incredulous, too. I just kind of stared at the screen there for a second going, you didn't know what down was.
Maybe I was wrong. I thought, well, maybe it is going to be fourth down. You're thinking, how could he not know what down it is? I don't know. It was very frustrating. And then the Rays were frustrating, so the only good thing that happened was AC/DC's coming out with a new album.
I love it. Well,
so anyway, I'm telling you. Well, I don't know who you had last night, but I did pick the Bucs.
I did pick the Bucs as well. I thought Chicago would cover from a betting standpoint.
Right.
But I didn't think that the Bears would win. I thought we'd win a close game. We did not. So there we are. That's where we're starting.
I know. Well, at least we don't have to play for another little over a week. So maybe, hopefully by then, Godwin and Miller and whoever else is out will be able to come back.
Yeah, seemingly everybody. Ready?
Yeah.
Here we go, Mom. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm taking Pittsburgh.
Arizona's at the Jets.
Arizona.
Carolina and the Falcons.
Yeah, I'm taking Carolina.
I'm torn on this. I feel like Atlanta's got to get a win at some point, but I think I'll take Carolina as well.
I took Carolina.
I did too. The Rams at Washington.
The Rams.
Cincinnati at Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Jacksonville at Houston.
You know, that I don't know about this game. I thought Houston was going to be really good. I don't know. They may still be. I took Houston.
I took Houston, too, to get their first win of the year, but they're not going to be really good. They're 0-4. Their season's over.
I'm telling you.
Las Vegas at Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Miami at San Francisco.
San Francisco.
This might be the best game of the entire weekend, and it might be the only one that we disagree on. Let's find out. Indianapolis at Cleveland.
Yeah, you know, I took Cleveland.
I'll take Indianapolis. So we have our first difference.
I really think that is a, toss-up, but I thought Cleveland seems to be, doing a little better, and so
they're doing
I don't know.
I
took Cleveland.
Yeah, they're doing a lot better. They won 3 straight. And
I know.
Yeah, they've played quite well. All right, I took Indianapolis. I love their defense. Giants and Cowboys, 2 terrible teams.
I'm taking the Cowboys, but I don't know about them.
Well, they're a mess. Their defense is the worst I've ever seen. Minnesota's at Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle.
Denver and New England. Let's hope it's played.
Yeah, are they going to play that game?
Well, let's just pick it in case.
Okay, I picked New England.
The Chargers and the Saints.
Yeah, I'm taking the Saints.
And then a game that I don't think they're going to play, but we might as well pick it, Buffalo and Tennessee.
Oh, I took Buffalo.
Yeah, I'll take Buffalo, too. So we have one different there, Indianapolis and Cleveland. I had a suspicion when I looked at the slate, I thought, we're not going to have much different here. These look straightforward, which means they'll be hell to pay because there'll be all kinds of weird results. I know, it means
that we'll miss a whole bunch of them. Because every time I think, this is not such a bad week, then I lose everything.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Typically, that's true, too, when I gamble. If I feel really good about my bet, it means I'm going to lose it. So that's
so you have to go against your gut.
Well, Mama, I love you. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk again soon.
I love you too, sweetie. Hopefully we'll do all right. So, yeah, we got the one different. Okay, well, so I can only pick up one this week.
You can only pick up one, or you can lose one.
I know. I can be back to where I was.
Yeah, that's true, too. That'll be a fun game.
Well, you guys have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Love you, Mama. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
All right. There she is. That's Mama. She appeared via the Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero specializing in iPhone, iPad repair. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway, 833 West Gain Street, online at phoneherotlh.com. Come back, wrap it up on this Libations Friday. A little loosey-goosey, look ahead to probables, all that good stuff in a moment.
For today, what do you do between horns of the day?
Gotta let it ride on a Friday, baby. When we're signing off on a Libations Friday, Freight Train plays. Should note that tomorrow we'll be on the air, myself, Tom Lang, for the War Chant TV YouTube pregame show, Tallahassee Game Day, as shown on War Chant TV, I should say. And I think, what is that, 3 to 5 we're going to go on? Is that what we decided?
3 to 5.
Yeah.
It'll also obviously be on these airwaves for you local folk. But if you're a Knoll fan listening from afar, maybe on your Saturday morning walk on the podcast. Yeah, you can get more of us later today.
That's right. And, I am loath to do this, but I was told that if you like what you hear, the YouTube channel provides a way for you to tip your server. So if you'd like to throw a tip our way, I'm supposed to let you know that that's possible. So there you go. You got that. Just click on the little dollar sign and say, here you go, Jeff. Here's $150 directly to you. If that's what you want to do, if that's your thing, you could say, here, Tom, here's $150 to you.
That's right.
You could. Or you could say, here, fellas.
Here's $20,000.
Here's $500 for a job well done. Or 10 or 5 or 2 or nothing. It's up to you.
Maybe you, like we were talking about yesterday, you're one of those eccentric rich people who you're just looking to do a good deed,
Yeah. We're talking to you.
That's right.
That's what we're doing.
Russell Westbrook, if you're listening out there.
Yeah, $8,000 tip at the Grand Floridian there. Well, I think that if you are one of those eccentric billionaires, you've gotten a bad name over the last several years. So let's line up on the right side of the ledger here.
Yeah, but you know who gave you a good name, eccentric rich person? This guy across the glass from me, because he just told a story about one of your kind, and he was the salt of the earth. He likes to wager for no reason.
Likes to wager for no reason.
That's right.
That's a cool thing. You know what? By the way, wagering for the purposes of making games entertainment are what you're going to have to do, make more entertaining, or what you're going to have to do this weekend in the NFL. It's not a great slate, man. And you know what I think I'm going to do?
Tease.
Well, that I'm doing. But I think in addition, I'm going to take every underdog. Straight bet across the board. I'm taking the points in every game. It's unreal right now how Vegas is having to adjust because of the favorites covering so much. I feel like you're about to get a good deal. You got people out here getting 10.5, 13.5. It's the NFL, man. People don't typically dominate people by 3 scores. You're going to be in it.
Yeah.
It's just something to look at. It's just, maybe I'll wait a week. But
I think your teaser weekend idea is the good one.
That's
There's
the good
a lot
one.
of great
that
numbers
you agree
here.
with.
A lot of good numbers.
I'm just going to give you the one. Just the one. I'm not giving you 7.
Teaser.
This segment, like Probables, brought to you by Whitten Glass, a family-owned and operated business serving Tallahassee and the Big Bend area since 1945. They are Tallahassee's first family in glass replacement and highly respected for their quality of installation. That's both residential and commercial. Whitten Glass, 222-5781. 222-5781. Cue it up. We got one, actually, buddy. I know you didn't think we did, but we do. Make it happen.
It's time for, how you say, with the pitching, probables?
Oh, yeah. There you go. Little peace out pitches.
Why not? Well, we don't have to. I can run it back again.
No, it's good. This is it. This is for all the marbles as it pertains to the ALDS. Find myself a little nervous, to be honest with you, because here we sit, and it's Garrett Cole on the other side. Not good if you're the Rays. You needed to make hay last night. You did not make hay last night.
You need a bloop and a blast tonight is what you need.
They've hit Garrett Cole well, relatively. Better than every other team in the league, in truth, and that is a statistical fact. Nobody hits Garrett Cole real well, though. So you're going to need Tyler Glasnow, the other guy on the other side, former Pirate. Couldn't throw strikes to save his life for the 6 years he was in Pittsburgh, but now he's one of the premier pitchers in the league. Jesus. Anyhow, Glasnow's pitching for the Rays. Garrett Cole's pitching for the Yankees. That game is on at 7 o'clock, TBS. Let's go Rays. That's a look at those that shall reside on the bump.
It's known as the Pittsburgh Pirates Classic.
Austin Meadows will probably go yard in this one. It is. Garrett Cole, of course, will be great. It's just Ridiculous. At least we got something out of Garrett Cole. I mean, he was good for us. We got to the playoffs with him. He was a good pitcher for us. He sucked once we got there, and he certainly wasn't this guy that throws 105, but at least we got something out of him. He gives up the long ball. He always has, and it's because, rightfully, he doesn't want to walk people, meaning Garrett Cole, and you ought not walk people. And when you throw 100, if it's 3-2, throw 100. Let's see if he hits it. But when people do, it goes an awful long way.
I don't know. I might want 89 on the outer half. He'll never think it's coming.
Yeah, he doesn't have that kind of accuracy. He's not Greg Maddux over here painting the corner with a 84-mile-per-hour changeup.
So, is it Kevin Gregg, the name of the umpire who called the Levon Hernandez-Greg Maddux game?
The famous, it's Eric Gregg, isn't it?
Eric Gregg, okay.
Yeah. He's dead, I believe.
My God.
Oh, yeah, a foot and a half outside.
Everything was. Everything.
Oh, it was unreal. Yeah, it was unreal. That's back in the day where they allowed umpires to do nonsense like that. And we complain about the modern umpire, but because they're now graded on that damn square that MLB has provided, that they actually have a way of grading them and saying, no, that ain't going to get it done. Can you imagine the fail rate of those guys who just thought it was cute to have their own strike zone? Those guys did.
Yes, because I just saw proof of it. And I feel like I saw that video 4 or 5 years ago, but it's no less stunning now than it was then.
Oh, yeah, it's the other batter's box.
Some things you get desensitized to. Violence, for one.
Yeah, sadly.
This, no. I can't not be stunned every time I look at that mashup, because Greg got a few calls too. It's not like he didn't.
Oh, absolutely he did.
But Levon lives in the other batter's box, and it's totally okay. No problem. Ha! It's every time.
It's bizarre. It's low and away in the other batter's box. See ya! You're like, what in the world?
And there wasn't, a felony for battery in that game, which there should be.
It wouldn't have mattered yesterday because the Braves just dominated the Marlins, but there's a situation in that game when it's 4-0 Atlanta, and it's really probably the most pivotal bat of the game. And it's 1st and 2nd for the Marlins with an opportunity, and it's a first pitch strike that's called that's, let's say, 6 inches low. And the problem with those kinds of missed calls is now you've influenced the next pitch and the next mindset, the swing. It drives me nuts. Now they're told basically what you just told the hitter was that you have to chase.
And he did 2-1 to make it 2-2.
That's correct.
So I heard this on the radio yesterday, and
I was watching it.
To their credit, the Braves crew, after that pitch, they say, well, the 2-1, it's 2-2 because of the 2-0 pitch call.
That's correct.
And this guy's had a terrible day. And I have to give them credit because the TBS days and sometimes Joe Simpson, they are notorious for being homers, the likes of which only can be rivaled by
the Marlins.
Rich Waltz and Bob Carpenter for the Nationals. But they were very good yesterday, saying this guy's terrible. He's having an awful day behind the plate.
Well, there's been too much of that in the postseason so far. We've really seen example after example for electronic strike zones being the norm, like moving forward. We're really getting to a place where even holdouts like myself, who I guess you'd call a traditionalist, a purist to some degree, really know and think it would be a shame to lose that element of the game. Meaning home plate umpires that maybe if within reason they call the high strike or they call the low strike or they call the away strike and then everybody adapts to it. You'll hear hitters say, I don't care if you're going to call a strike at the letters. If that's who you are, I know it going into the game, but you can't then call the low strike. You've got to stick with the zone there. You're going to call it at the letters, fine. Anything below the knees you can't call because I can't hit then. And if you want to give something away, then you can't also give way in. I got to be able to get out there to hit the ball. Hitters are fine with that. It's when the guy is all over the map and he doesn't really have a strike zone, where one guy, it's low, it's a strike. The next guy, it's, up above the letters, it's a strike. You're like, what's your zone, man? What is your zone?
Sometimes it's a teacup, sometimes it's a big gulp, sometimes it's a keg.
Right.
And you're just like, wow.
You gotta have parameters that I can adjust to. And yesterday you saw it again, man. It's just those guys. That was awful. And that was the biggest at bat of the game for the Marlins. They weren't going to win. They didn't have the pitching, and the Braves were the better team. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. It's just that, man, 1st and 2nd, nobody out. I got to be able to have an at bat here. If I hit a double in the alley and it's 4-2 and I'm standing on a second, we got us a ball game.
Also, it's worth saying once again, because you'll have several days in which the National League Championship Series and the ALCS are played on the same day. Monday through Friday for the Braves next week in a best-of-7. They're playing Monday through Sunday, but Game 1 is Monday. And if they get the early game and it's a 5:15 first pitch ahead of the West Coast 8:20 first pitch, just be on your toes, people.
Yeah, I would guess those would be pretty close to primetime games. That's a good series.
They do typically, but prime time is still considered, happy hour style. Like one game, and I would think the NLCS would be the earlier one because it's being played in Texas versus California for the ALCS.
Yeah,
so,
I forgot about the neutral site stuff.
Right.
Completely forgot about that. Yeah.
So if they have both championship series being played on the same day, I don't know how it's staggered. But be prepared for maybe us getting off the air early or something along those lines.
I meant to mention, as we did probables there, and as we say goodbye, man, it's been a tough week for the legends of the game. Hall of Fame pitcher Whitey Ford died, and I didn't make mention of it earlier today, and I meant to. He has passed away at the age of 91. Now, listen, if you get into the 90s, you had a good go. And if you're Whitey Ford and your World Series accomplishments have secured your place as a legend in one of the most winningest organization of pro sports history, you had a good go of it. You did well.
Yeah, my buddy from high school who went to college at JU to play football, he went to college with Whitey Ford's grandson. And
how cool is that?
The stories were that Whitey was just a really salt-of-the-earth kind of guy. So that's unfortunate.
16 big league seasons, pitched for 11 pennant winners, and went to 6 World Series. Good go of it for Whitey Ford, and he was dominant. His career over those 16 seasons, 2.75 ERA. He won a ton of postseason games and World Series games, and because of it, that's why he's obviously shrined, and he's a guy that diehard Yankee fans who know the history of that organization, they would put on the pantheon of all-time great pitchers, and they've had some good ones. So good for Whitey Ford. Rest in peace, 91 years of age. Man, we should all be so lucky. I'm assuming, based on what you just told me, too, that good man who had a good life and had memories in those latter years as it was his time to fade away, sitting on that back porch over a cup of tea thinking about, I did some things. That had to have been really, really cool. I always like that when you get to talk to old people and old people who have done something that, whether it's in their, whatever their craft may be. You're like, my brother, the one that is a retired air traffic controller, one of the cool things, I tell him this all the time, and he's a really humble guy, much more so than I am. And he rolls his eyes when I brag on him. But he was in the military at the right time. He was in the Air Force. He helped develop the first GPS stuff. So he's like, he knew that was coming out.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and he'll tell you it's pretty cool. The original GPS wasn't pinpoint accurate, so you weren't allowed to use it in commercial. Because you kind of need to know you're by the runway. Mm-hmm. but when the military, when they were developing it, they would get to within, 100 yards, 200 yards. They were getting closer and closer.
And they put it on a bomb.
Yeah. And so they knew that this was coming down the pike, that in general we were all going to have it. It would make maps useless. They were like, well, that'll be another skill you don't need anymore. Kind of like cursive. It's just crazy.
But you're right. Seeing the satisfaction on people's faces when they recall what they like.
Yeah.
So one of my uncles served in World War II. He's still around. He works on homes. I forget, Habitat for Humanity. He still does that in his 90s. He helps the people out.
Jimmy Carter did that for a long time.
He served in the Pacific. Jamie's grandmother,
she's also still with us. Yeah.
She's got great stories about how German POWs were serving in the Midwest in Minnesota and how they used to interact with the German POWs back in World War II when they're working in factories and helping the country. And then these guys are like down there like, don't go by there. But then they'd walk along the fence line and tell jokes. I mean, it was great stories. You're like, well, you did that? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And you see the wry smile of the remembering of the good times.
You would have liked to have met my granddad who worked on the railroads in Oklahoma at the age of 12, smoking cigarettes and just working the railroads. I mean, he's been dead for 25 years, but think about that's crazy.
See, our grandfathers could have talked because my mom's father worked on the subway systems in New York.
Whoa.
Back in, like the old ones. They were replaced.
The ones that are underground now.
Yes. He worked on those.
Underneath the ones that are there.
He was Irish. You might imagine that's the kind of labor that he could find until he could open his own deli in Queens.
Well, that's a story for the days, man. That's really good stuff. Good work out of you. Good work, Matthew. Thanks to all of you who watched or listened to the program. We do appreciate you. Again, Coming up next, high school football, followed by the NBA Finals. We'll join it in progress, and then tomorrow's pregame show at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, the high school football begins at 7 o'clock tonight. It's NFC and who was it, Matthew? Florida High. Thank you so much.
There we go. Director Matthew was
Varsity Sports Network.
He was on top of it.
He was.
I thought he'd be sleeping over there.
We might have a Rattler review coming up in a couple minutes as well.
Really? I've been waiting for that show to come back.
It came back last week.
Rory Schrock does a good job.
First episode, yeah.
That's my man right there. I don't know if there's a lot to talk about with FAMU right now. But
it's the journey back, I think, is the story he's documenting.
Okay, I'm ready to hear it. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Be well.